Hello, you're very welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. I'm Shane, that's Daragh.
Hello.
This is episode number 64. And we're going to have a bit of a more stacked show than last week. Obviously, there's a fair few games coming up this weekend. But we're actually going to open the show with just an update on all the World Cup squad news, because obviously this week
everything
was
was
the deadline.
finalised.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a fair few headlines to go through on that one and talk about. But we're going to start with that. And then we'll move on to going through some of the warm-up games. We'll be looking at Japan v South Africa. Obviously a very interesting game upcoming. And then the second fixture between Scotland and Georgia. We'll also be looking ahead to England and Italy, New Zealand versus Tonga, Australia versus Samoa, and then finally we'll be doing a big preview on Ireland-Wales as well.
That's right.
And then we'll just give brief mentions to some of the other games going on: Namibia v Kings, Russia v Connacht, and then round up the show with the news of the week.
Yes, absolutely.
Is the plan. And if you're new here, please like and subscribe down below and share and comment as well.
Most important thing is comment. We do enjoy the comments. Got a few contentious ones last week, but sure, listen, criticism taken on board, I guess.
Absolutely.
The factor about the team sheets is just, it is what it is. We get one day a week to shoot, so we can do our best to preview. We
normally do okay on our intuition, but yes, I think warm-up games throw up little curveballs, and that was an oversight as well on our part. But this week we'll be cracking into more games as well to break through as well, so we'll have to speed through.
And just before we get into that, next week's show, obviously these are all the last warm-up games this week.
Mm-hmm.
We've all the squads finalised, so there's actually not going to be any rugby really going on next week.
Yeah.
But what there is going to be is our World Cup preview in full. We're going to go through all the pools. It's going to be our big preview extravaganza.
Yes, indeed.
So if you're enthused to get all our views on all the pools and some predictions as well, be sure to tune in next week. That's going to be our big World Cup preview.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we can even get into that, we do, as I was saying, World Cup squads were finalised this week.
That's right.
There were some contentious decisions as always, and some interesting omissions. I suppose we'll start with Ireland, who named their squad in somewhat ridiculous circumstances over it leaking incorrectly and then leaking correctly, and then having a hodgepodge of an announcement that was not fully the plan.
They had planned to announce it next Sunday, and sort of the position that they have, the place that they've positioned themselves in terms of being anti-journalist seemingly, and anti-press conference and anti-public getting any information, is willfully ignorant as to the context of the modern world, as well as just a little short-sighted and silly.
Well, ultimately ineffective.
I'd say it's been driving Joe Schmidt crazy, because everything has leaked before he's announced it, basically since they've come back from camp. Yeah,
including now the squad.
Yeah, injuries, team sheets, where what he's thinking, who's lining up where, and now the World Cup squad. They tried to get out ahead of it, but they were still painfully behind. The reason that we're starting with this is obviously because it is actually and has been the most newsworthy squad selection, because it's generated quite a bit of controversy. The decision to drop Devon Toner, seemingly for South African import John Klein.
Yeah. Although strictly speaking, not covering the same position. But that is the story, and that is the salacious detail of the story as well.
Indeed, it's been sort of a perfect storm of a story for narrative driving. I mean, you have this guy in Dev, who is the guy you would want every professional player in Ireland. You'd want to look up to the guy. He started off, he was sort of lanky, he was skinny, he wasn't an athlete.
Had very poor hands in the first season.
Had very poor hands as well, and was just basically a tall guy, and worked really hard on every aspect of his game and every aspect of his physique, and became a superb player who was a stalwart in the Irish team, always gave 100%, and never let them down on a big occasion. And while he had definitely a poor warm-up run of matches,
sure, I
was under the impression that they would stick with him, and that he's come good on the big occasion before. And even if they're going to go the Ryan and Henderson route with Tyburn to come on afterwards, Dev might not be the worst presence to have in the squad. But as it is, they've gone for a guy who essentially is unproven in an Irish shirt. Munster player Jean Klein, who came from South Africa 3 years ago and has been sort of off the radar as far as being in an Ireland squad, has come in, played a couple of games, including a shellacking at the hands of England, where he was most unimpressive. and has taken Dev's jersey, and it has Augustin Pichot and Luke Fitzgerald amongst others have been very, very irked by it. What is your take on it?
Yeah, well, I'm worried about it. For all kinds of rugby related reasons. I think the line out's been pretty shoddy. I think Dev is one guy that I like having there for myriad different reasons. Even at a point I was hearing making, like, if Cronin's going off the bench and he has dodgy throws in him, it's nice to have Dev there with that telepathy from Leinster, but also just the sheer size of the man. But yeah, like things like the fact that Jean Klein probably isn't going to see much rugby. He'll probably tog out maybe against Russia and possibly Samoa or something as well. But the fact that that's the case means that, like, who would you rather, if they're going to be tackle bag holders in the squad, who would you rather be there in that capacity? Probably Dev. So yeah, no, I disagree with it, but that's, like, I'm not even all that convinced by the tight head lock talk, which is obviously what the justification has been since the opening of the warm-ups. We kind of got a feeling that Klein was going to be on it, because ever since the warm-ups have started, he's been thrust in there with this tight head lock specialty on it. But with that being said, like, if the concern with it is that we're not powerful enough around, or at scrum time specifically, with Dev on the pitch, I've still never seen us bullied in the scrum area.
Yeah, we have sensational scrummaging props, and Ian Henderson is an extremely hefty bloke, and he did line up a tight head lock at the weekend against Wales, and seemingly ended the careers of Samson Lee and Rob Evans, which we'll get onto. So I don't necessarily buy that chat either, and I just think sort of karmically it doesn't quite feel right to leave Big Dev out, because he's been there forever and he's given them everything, and it feels like quite an ignominious way for that to be the end of a career of a guy that you would want everyone to look up to and everyone admires. Feels a little hollow. The other shock exclusions, well, there were two that weren't necessarily shocking, but they were big calls. It initially leaked that Will Addison had made the squad. Turns out that's not the case. And he had played very well over the weekend, and likewise Jordy Murphy has been pipped by Rhys Ruddock. But the big news for us, really, I think even the bigger, the bigger snub from a playing point of view is that the form scrum half in the country, Kieran Marmion, isn't in the squad. He didn't make the cut. Two scrum halves went, Luke McGrath and Conor Murray, and that one feels that made me feel a bit uneasy, because while we have seemingly in the last week or so been trying to develop, or at least last week tried to develop a more attacking mindset and bringing a bit of speed and variation to our game, and two big bringers of speed and variation in Will Addison and Marmion, I was hoping would make the plane and haven't. So I think that's a concern.
That is a concern. I think Addison was, upon reflection, like I was thinking that last week as well, but last week they weren't really put up to the same kind of pressure that they will be. For one thing, the Welsh line speed was a bit lax, so it was easier to get things like offloads going, which we did a bit more, but it's still a bit of a hollow test given the opposition. So Addison just hasn't played enough rugby really at fullback. It would have been nice to see him maybe get the nod at the start of the year when Henshaw was getting the nod at 15, but the fact that he
was injured, I think, for
I know,
6 Nations.
and like the fact is he was part of the plan, but he really hasn't played that much, and is a bit unproven.
It's curious that they would pick him at fullback last week then, when you have such a minute-based deficit for everyone who's backing up Rob Kearney at 15. You have Henshaw played one game and it was a disaster, so he's off. Larmer has had some stuttering performances that were not particularly impressive, and then outside of that you have no minutes for anybody at 15 in the last year.
Most of them.
But since Zebo's gone, it has been Rob and then nobody, and it feels like, it seems to me now that Conway has to be the backup 15, and he's been playing all of his rugby on the wing.
Oh yeah, but he did play around 20 odd minutes at fullback last week and played very well. I think that the thought process with the selection last week was that it was going to be either Conway or Addison on the plane as covering the same role, basically your fullback come winger kind of job, and Conway outperformed him and has been one of the guys that has shown good form in since the return to play for the World Cup warm-ups, which is something that can't be understated. It's possibly something that contributed to the Dev dropping as well, because I know he had surgery at the end of the season last year and was coming back to it, and did, to be fair, look a little sluggish. You were calling him out on being a bit slow on line-out lifts in the England game.
He was slow on line-out lifts, he was loose on defence. He was very lucky not to be cited at the weekend for a very poor attempted a tackle with no arms that did end up catching a guy in the head.
Yeah.
So that could have factored into it.
It definitely would have. And you see it probably in training as well, which we're not getting to see. Like, you get more of a sense of who's actually coped with the rigours of the pre-season a bit better and who's it's suiting. Because with a training squad of over 40 or something, and you're all on a regimen that's very fitness heavy and conditioning heavy, you don't fully know who that's going to really work for and who that maybe isn't going to work for and is going to come out of it a bit heavy-legged and a bit kind of just not conditioned right. That's, I think, what's going on with Jordy Murphy. Because it was a purely anecdotal, like, little kind of look when they were playing Italy, but I really thought Jordy Murphy looked very frail by his own standards and looked a bit of a shell of himself in the carry and in the contact. And that's probably something to do with it. He just probably didn't condition or get adjusted to the pace of play from that conditioning as soon as all of the Ireland team and camp would have wanted. And when it's so competitive, which is for the first time ever, the 31-man squad is super competitive, and a lot of these guys are unlucky to miss out. But it is the broadly positive news from Ireland's point of view is that for the first World Cup really ever, they're bringing a 31-man squad that's being competitive. They're not bringing a 15-man team that they want to go and try and win the World Cup with. They actually have been focusing 4 years on 31 men, and there are shock exclusions. The one, as you said, that I'm most shocked. I think I can kind of get my head around all three of them of those exclusions, but I can't kind of justify the Marmion one. Just because Conor Murray's form's been so sketchy that. We have no speed now, because Luke McGrath, while being a very dogged defender, definitely does have a relationship at club level with both Johnny Sexton and Joey Carberry to fall back on him maybe a bit more than Marmion. Does like make his tackles and stuff like that, but he is generally a bit slower than Marmion off the base, and Conor Murray has not looked himself with speed at all, so I just don't know if we mix it up enough with that alternative to Murray.
I definitely agree, and I think it was noticeable when Marmion came off the pitch last week how Ireland slowed down. He has been great, his passing has been great, he has been quicker and more sharp than just about anybody else in the Irish backline, I would go so far as to say. So I'm a bit gutted for him. That said, we could make mugs of ourselves by making too big a deal of it, because Luke McGrath, I've had sort of a love-hate relationship with Luke McGrath.
Being a Leinster fan.
He has been poor at times, he has been frustratingly slow and inaccurate at times, and then he has games where he's just sensational, but he is a sensational defender, probably a more consistent box kicker than Marmion, although the box kick seems to have diminished in the game in importance from Ireland's point of view. But when he's at his best attacking wise, we know he can play quick. He has a great Kiwi-like little halfback instinct to run a great inside tracking line, and gets his fair share of tries from that. So he could come good. He has a good personality, and I would be confident that if as has happened before, if he has to step up for a 20-minute period in a quarter-final, I would be optimistic about his ability to do so. But I do think we're weaker for the absence of Marmion.
But what it is reflective of is just that Ireland are there with a game plan, and it's the game plan broadly that we've seen over the last over the last little while they have tried to bring in a bit more attacking footy. I definitely think Conway is going to be worth his place in the 23. I would like to see level of form and attacking flair. I think is important in a team. bolters and the notion of them, like who's grabbing your tries or making your tries in the World Cup year, and not only that, in the World Cup month, because that's more important. Like, obviously Earls is the incumbent on the right wing, but we haven't seen him yet. You'll probably see him this week. If he's a little stuttery or not up to speed, I would like to see Conway straight in against Scotland at 14 with.
I think he's already got the 23 jersey anyway over Larmer. So we'll dig on obviously more into Ireland as we go on, and we'll have a fuller preview of them next week.
But those are definitely the big talking points. There were a few others, obviously, Sean, but most of them were expected. We had Jack McGrath, who was very much out of the running. Rob Herring as well, which is the right call, I think. Because I was concerned that Cronin was falling out of favour, but to leave a guy who's that electric off the squad would have been crazy. So that's not been done as well. So there are positives broadly with it as well. Those are definitely the notable omissions. But I suppose we'll move on to Wales as well, who, like Warren Gatland, always brings a bit of controversy to things like selection as well.
He does.
Definitely no more controversial than Rob Evans and Samson Lee, the two Grand
guys
Slam winning
who,
front row,
we
gone.
have on this podcast and on Don's Unbiased Rugby's channels said with some degree of certainty that Rob Evans and Samson Lee would be the prop forwards. They're both gone. They were both sort of retired by Andrew Porter and the Munster scrum before him last week. They did have a very rough time of it. They had a rough time of it against England as well. But shocked I say to not see them in the starting front row, which will leave, I guess, Nicky Smith,
Thomas Francis.
Thomas Francis
is probably the front runner for the title. I was up in the air as to whether Samson Lee was ahead of Thomas Francis anyway, to be honest. He's had a great season.
Thomas Francis is great. I didn't think Samson Lee was necessarily ahead of him. Surprised to see him out of the squad though. And just two tight heads. Which I don't know if anyone can switch in there at all. I haven't actually seen enough from those props on either side, but it does seem a bit risky and just a very, very kind of brutal to be cutting those two. Like the other one who was cut, Elias, wasn't it? Leon Brown, who also had a rough time of it.
He was out last week as well. It seems literally last weekend's showing in Scrum has done for pretty much all of them there.
It has, and it shakes it up. They have not been scrummaging to the level of their Celtic neighbours, Ireland and England, and so to abandon those guys, doubling down in the Exeter scrum could work out for them. It remains to be seen, but it seems very harsh, and my curse finally hit poor Rob Evans.
It wasn't injury at all. It was just getting dropped. That's pretty shocking. But it still leaves. They have obviously Wyn Jones and Reece Carr as well as Elliot D and Ryan Elias. They're still bringing a lot of front rows and a lot of forwards in general.
I think it's 5 props, 3 hookers. Just about everyone else doing that.
The other talking point is it isn't actually someone who missed out, but the fact that all the back rows from their training squad, none of them have been cut. They're bringing all of them.
Most sides brought 5 back rowers. Wales brought the same quantity of everybody else, except they only brought 3 centres instead of a lot of teams bringing 4. And they brought all of their back rows, which just gives you a little insight into how they play the game. They like their back rowers to be caution to the wind, frantic, firing their bodies into tackles and into breakdowns. And so they've 6 men deployed for the task.
A glad attritional kind of game.
Yes, and, indeed.
To be honest, I'm kind of glad because I was fearful for James Davis making the plane.
He didn't play well at the weekend.
He didn't play all that well, but I see the value in having like an out and out 7 in there as well.
I definitely think there's a drop off from the first. Like if you take Navidi, Tipperick, and Moriarty, and what's in behind them, Wainwright, Davis, and Shingler isn't as good. And there's a drop off in intensity and power there.
Probably not. And I think the one who they can't afford to lose is Justin Tipperick, because I think he's the out and out world class back row that they have. And the rest are very fine players and do their jobs very, very well and equip themselves well. But he is genuinely world class, so he's one to watch out for.
The other bit of controversy we had mentioned, the centres. Owen Watkin, despite having I think a worse performance than Scott Williams on the day last week, as we built their shootout.
Yes.
Owen Watkin does get the nod. He is the sort of incumbent squad member.
They seem to prefer him. I don't know, Scott Williams has kind of fallen out of favour over the last 12 to maybe 18 months, I suppose. He's always been the guy there in behind the main guys, and it's just not really happened for him this time. I do agree with you. I thought Watkin was very loose last week. I thought at one point for a break he failed to stick his tackle on Bundy Aki, missed a few other kind of plays passing him by. So I'm surprised, but then it's a point that's being constantly made by a load of pundits, especially ones who are former players, just the fact that we don't see what goes on in training, and it does have an influence on what all these coaches are doing, especially because the warm-up game, even though playing on the day is very important, these warm-up games are a bit of higgledy-piggledy as far as intensity is concerned. They're a bit more like a training hit-out, so at that, are they more important than the week of training leading up to it, which we're not privy to? Possibly not, because you're going to reveal a lot about where the guys are physically, mentally, and just how sharp they are in terms of that as well in those weeks leading up. So it does seem a bit of a strange decision based on the evidence last week on the pitch, but it was still always a tight call because they're both pretty similar calibre players.
And the other news, which came as no surprise to us, but did seemingly for some other Welshman, Patchell over Jared Evans, who, I mean, the performance that we got last week from those two boys corresponded to our feeling on what that was. I mean, we had heard quite a bit of scepticism vis-a-vis Reece Patchell from Welsh supporters and other supporters in recent weeks, and I have always felt that if given the go in the jersey, Patchell's going to step up, and we saw a sign of that last week when he came off the bench, and I'm glad that they've gone with him. He won't weaken them.
No.
He can come on and make things happen.
But it's also like, it's something I've been saying as well. It's like they lost Anscombe, and the closest like-for-like player they have to Anscombe is Patchell. Like he's a big guy, big-ish guy who likes to be physical, but take it to the line from 10 and can play 15 as well, and does so for his club. Smooth passing game, can link up very well. For as far as like not changing the system, they can bring him in, and like if they want to do some games where he starts when you have a bigger to come off the bench and kind of steady the shift for the last 20, that's an option. Similarly, you can do the other way around. You can be open with bigger. I
suspect they'll go for Patchell in the Fiji game, and they might go for bigger again. They go for Patchell against Fiji, Uruguay. Go for bigger against Georgia and Australia.
Maybe something like that. Yeah, no, because they are quite a versatile team, as we've always harped on. They do like to have different ways to play. But like Jared Evans, while being quite a lovely, well-rounded 10, he's a bit club level. Like the Cardiff Blues,
he's certainly not there yet.
They don't control games all that well. They do score some lovely tries, but they tend to be a bit loose in terms of their control, and ultimately the results reflect that. And that Scarlets team, that Scarlets vintage from 2018 that we've always been harping on, which is why it's good to see like Sir James Davis in and Reece Patchell in.
Unfortunate for Steph Evans.
Steph Evans couldn't quite make that cut, but it's like that team were quality and gave Wales a bit more of an attacking flair and a bit more width and a bit more speed.
And they came second to the Six Nations that year, which doesn't mean that you should write them off just because this year's iteration won the Grand Slam.
It's
true.
true.
All sorts of elements of goodness in that Welsh team.
Yeah.
And while there are some shocks in there, it is a good squad overall.
Yeah.
And it'll be curious to see how their scrum holds up.
That's the main concern I have, because those guys who are going now, I thought Carey impressed me a little bit in the bits I've seen of him, but a lot of those props, like obviously last week they were destroyed in that area, but they haven't really been solid, not the same kind of solid that they were in Six Nations, and not kind of what they're looking for from that set piece, because they will be targeted in that area in their pool and in the matches to come. So it's one set piece they really do have to work on. Sure.
Yeah, no question. The Scotland squad is the next one to have been named. Now, actually, I think what I have here is the Rugby Pass leak. I don't think that Gregor Townsend is announcing his until this afternoon. This afternoon being Tuesday. Don't give out to us. So they have, I believe, according to Rugby Pass, left out Hugh Jones, for whom the writing was on the wall. He was an appalling defender and just wasn't doing quite what he needed to do in attack to be there when you had other centres grabbing the jersey. Chris Harris
grabbing tries as well.
Exactly.
So
and then Rory Hutchinson will obviously feel bad as well after grabbing 2 tries at the weekend. Magnus Bradbury, despite a great season in Edinburgh, hasn't quite shown it in a Scotland jersey.
Sure.
Matt Fagerson the same, not particularly surprising. And then Josh Strauss.
That is surprising to me.
Yeah,
I think they could use Josh Strauss in the wars to come.
Yeah, indeed.
He's
just another guy as physical as Hamish to help him out in that back row.
Pretty much, yeah. Like he admittedly, he was we were seeing him be tired in the Six Nations, but that's because he was playing and inconsistent. But he was playing more minutes because of that injury crisis that was kind of completely factoring into that team's selection for the whole kind of tournament. Their hand was somewhat forced, so he was starting games at number 8 and playing full 80 minutes against bigger, more physical teams. So we were seeing him get a bit more raggedy. He's definitely a bit old on the older end of the spectrum as far as their back row options. But as a wily squad member who's kind of been there, done that, has quite a glittering career, has played either hemisphere quite a lot. So we saw the benefit of him. Actually at the weekend against Georgia when he came off the bench. He was physical in a surprising way, and so it was strange to see him gone, but in general Scotland squad very strong, dependent on Finn Russell. He's still absolutely vital to their chances, they're in good form. They were impressive last weekend, and they have a fair bit of momentum and confidence going in, so they'll be flying pretty high, because unlike Six Nations where it felt they were feeling very hard done by and very, very unlucky with the state of affairs with the injuries, they kind of were writing themselves off before the tournament began. That doesn't quite seem to be the case this time. They're pretty confident and pretty buoyant.
Quietly moving on, France named their squad, and theirs came with a healthy dose of shocks as well. Anthony Bellew and Vincent Ratas didn't make it, but that's unsurprising given that they didn't feature. Rates could feature in the future. You don't know. He could have a glittering French career.
He had a great season, all right, for La Rochelle.
Less so for Bellew. But then the more contentious ones would be Danny Priso, a prop forward who has got quite a bit of game time, is a good scrummager.
Yeah.
Didn't quite make it. Roman Taufi Fanua, who...
Unsurprising, that.
Yeah, he was just looked a bit all over the shop.
He looked like a slightly weaker, slightly like as loose version of Van Mahina.
Yeah.
Which, given their faith in Van Mahina, means that they're not going to drop him for
another one.
Yeah. So no, unsurprising with him not making it. But the two that did surprise me, like Francois Croix, looked great in the first game against Scotland, and
loads of lovely
put his
touches
hand up
in the open field.
But the main one that I'm shocked by is Felix Lambie, because he really impressed me, and I thought it was one of the finds they had of the Six Nations. Not least because I am a self-confessed not a Van Mahina fan. Think that their locks in general are quite loose at times and quite lazy, quite slow around the corner at times, as just a broad kind of fault on their part. You can see a lot of soft tries conceded around the fringes when there's quick ball. Felix Lambie is one of those guys, a bit more like your Dev Toner, or sorry, like your kind of James Ryan's, Itoji, just guys who keep going.
What I will say for Felix Lambie is that I have noticed him be physically quite deficient at times.
So that's the concern as far as France are concerned, because they want to be a bullying massive presence, which is why they put faith in guys like Van Mahina, even though you can see him take plays off and switch off and get caught out. But even when he's doing that, he's still a big unit, and so is Gabriel Ag, who's lucky to be in there. To be honest, that's probably what spelled doom.
Yeah,
for,
but they
for
still only brought 3 locks, including Atoria, who's more of a back rower. So
tugs out at 7 sometimes for them. So
pretty lax French stuff. But there you go. The news there is that there's no Felix Lambie.
Which I think they could regret. Because it's just his work ethic that impresses me. Whatever about the lack of physicality, I like the way he moves around the pitch, like the way he puts his body about. And they'll probably be lacking a bit of impetus without him on the plane.
Surely. And Samoa named their squad. No great shocks. All the usual suspects in. Some quality players, most notably in the back row and then in the outside backs and centres. They'll be fun to watch. Michael Alatoa gets the nod, the Crusaders lad. Who I'm a fan of, and will get to go against his brother this weekend, as we'll talk about in due course. But great to see Nana Williams.
Nana Williams back in time is good, and they still have to figure out who their first choice 10 is, but they're bringing both of them anyway. So
37-year-old Tusi, another headline maker there. Likewise, Tonga named their squad. Nasi Manu captain, no surprises there. Same boys that were talking out in the Pacific Nations Cup. Hoping to see improvement on them. Namibia 2 named theirs with a 100% Namibian born flair to them.
Absolutely, which is very, very good on them.
Good on them.
It's good to see that.
Is right, and they have a scrum half, another Yankees, the third halfback Yankees who'll make it to the tournament, who has played with them I think in 3 previous World Cups. Right, I want to say so.
It's going to be one of the few to make 4. That's pretty.
I think that's right. Anyway, I'll have to double check that, but. Namibia are raring to go, and I'll be curious to see them in action. And then finally Georgia, who we obviously love and adore on this podcast, but had a rough time of it last weekend. Obviously since the injury of Suits Goridza, they've been looking to fill that 7 jersey. And Manmuka Gorgodza has answered the call from retirement.
It's Godzilla back again.
He could in theory now have a back row of Giorgadze, Gorgodza and Gorgadza.
Excellent. It'll make it easier to pronounce the names, because Goridza is something I mess up. I mess it up all the time.
He was vital for them.
He was. It is, like, to be honest now, for as you were saying off camera, like for a team in Georgia's position, tier 2 team up against it in the context of their pool, because it really is the pool of death, and losing their star player from the year just gone in their first warm-up game is obviously not ideal. Getting shellacked by Scotland, getting taught a few lessons by Scotland in their home patch was probably useful in the long term, but they now have a couple of weeks to sort stuff
so
out.
Much out,
and bringing a guy like Gorgodza in. There's a lot to be said for that, especially for a tier 2 team. You can see a lot of examples in World Cups of big name players for tier 2 teams putting in massive performances.
So the guy who's won professional trophies. He's played with Montpellier, he's played with Toulon, he's been around the block.
Absolutely.
And it's something that a lot of those guys can look up to and respect. And if for nothing else, his advice is going to be valuable for them.
Yes.
But I do suspect he'll get his game time, and I suspect
think
he'll be good. I hope he'll be good.
I hope he'll be good. Now, there is a caveat. Obviously, he's been playing for too long, which can negatively impact any player.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It did for Nanu's World Cup chances, ultimately.
This is it, but I suspect you're right. He will get game time. He will be. He's always a fan favourite, but he's a bit of a hero in that dressing room. I'm sure all the young lads who are playing for that team now, the Lelos, have nothing but reverence and respect for the guy, and how could you not? Yeah. And he is also a World Cup legend, like some of those highlights from 4 years ago.
Yeah, and
also,
2011 as well.
And 2011 as well. He'd I still remember him ragdolling Sean O'Brien in a game against Leinster as well. He's really, really awesome. He's box office as well, so it's good to have him at the World Cup, to be honest, because that was unexpected, and that was rather a good twist on it.
Totally.
Gods are back. No way.
I think it was a feel good story.
Yeah. So I think that's it then as far as squad news. And definitely just had to open the show with that, because it does inform any of the previews, the upcoming previews that we have to do, because just obviously that is the news stuff of this week. The newsworthy stuff is that the squads are finalised, and really the World Cup's the next thing.
And while we have our controversies and our guys who are very unlucky to miss out, we now have our 31 players per country, and it's time to sort of draw a line under the sand of the talk and the away and
spin and such.
Go as we are, and back your team, and assess as we assess, and away we'll go. Be sure to catch our World Cup preview in full next week.
For sure. So with that, I suppose we'll move on, and we'll get to previewing some of the warm-up games that are upcoming this weekend. And we're going to start with what is a very, very interesting game for a myriad of different reasons, but Japan versus South Africa. Japan. Like, South Africa are already in Japan.
Yep.
They're doing things right. They're a couple of weeks out, they're getting conditioned already.
I was reading both Ches and Kobe and Dwayne Vermeulen said they have found it somewhat tough to acclimatise to the conditions.
I'm sure it is.
It's quite humid over there at the moment. I was reading, there's actually thunderstorms in the air right now, and it's about 27 degrees and humid and thundery and weird.
That's bad news for the Irish.
Bad news for the Northern Hemisphere in general. The South Africans are used to the humidity, maybe not so much in Africa, but definitely just hot conditions in general, and shortness of breath that comes from altitude training as well. So I suspect the South Africans will be better placed than most to cope.
Well, certainly with the fact that their conditioning starts from already last week. It's going to be at 11:15 a.m. Irish time.
This Friday.
That's this Friday.
Yes.
Kumagaya Rugby Stadium in Japan, and it's going to be reffed by Nick Berry. And just a cool little note here. Apparently, 2,000 Japanese fans turned up for the first Springbok training session on Japanese soil. They're getting excited,
bulling for this World Cup. However excited we are, I suspect the Japanese rugby following public are extremely
buzzing, I dare say. And a few, obviously the Japanese league as well, that's been gaining momentum and stars and money for the last however many years as well. It's all coming to a head in less than a month's time. It's 2 weeks time.
Oh geez, 17 days from now. Japan themselves, in terms of what they're looking to get out of this game, it is a scary game for them. They do have home advantage. They'll be just looking to up that pace. They do stand deep and get the ball wide quite quickly, so it'd be curious to see if they can get outside that Bok blitz.
Outside those wingers and the Lutanyo Am shooter that is there, or if it's Jesse Crew as well.
It's Lutanyo Am. They've named their team. It's their full team. It's the Boks full team. It's Faf and Pollard, and
that's probably right. Like, the Boks are addressing a bit of hurt, obviously, from 4 years ago. There are demons to exercise and put to bed. It's just a curiosity and kind of a quirk of scheduling that these two teams have only met once, and it was that day 4 years ago.
What Razzie was saying in his press conference was the last time we played, they ended up making a movie about it. We got to make sure there isn't a sequel.
He's probably right.
Or Revenge of the Sith could be the sequel, I guess.
Could be it. This is definitely more Empire Strikes Back is what he's looking for. They want to scrub that out. They can do without having a losing record against Japan, the hosts, just for all kinds of
totally. It would be a momentum sucking.
It would.
It's their last game before they play the All Blacks.
This is true too, and it's a good hit out of that, because like you say, Japan want to stand a bit deeper, go a bit wider, be a bit faster. So it'll be an interesting test for the Springboks. Japan themselves will want to make sure that the ball isn't dying at all. They want to be at their Teckerville best, where they're quick and wide and getting the ball out there.
It'll just be a good test for those Japanese as well, because as impressive as they've been, they haven't played a tier 1 side yet.
No.
And there is a definite gap between Tier 1 and Tier 2 right now. Not really a fault of the Tier 2 teams. It's just that going into this World Cup, I feel like a whole load of the Tier 1 teams, almost all of them, are getting it so much better and so much more right than they had been in World Cups past. Usually there's like one or two Tier 1 teams who are just getting it totally wrong, which you're not really seeing right now. Everyone is sort of primed and ready, and the World Cup is so open, so that gap naturally is there between Tier 1 and Tier 2.
The other side of it, which was a good point that was made on another video 1014 put out, is that in the last 4 years and all the last few cycles as well, the number of tests played by the Tier 1 teams versus the Tier 2 teams, it's nearly double. It's up around 55, 58 mark for Tier 1 sides, where it's in the 30s for Tier 2 sides.
Where Japan and Fiji are most accomplished in terms of coping with that because of the way they play the game, and just because they have a load of guys playing pro rugby anyway. So they would be more primed to deal with that than the other sides, but obviously it's a factor. But just coping, like they're going straight into the Lions Den in terms of their first Tier 1 game. They're going to be playing a team that is so physical and so precise and technical at the set piece, as well as being physical. So it's just going to be like, they're a great scrummaging team at Tier 2 level. How are they going to cope with the box scrum? How are they going to defend them? Like, that's where I really fear for Japan, is when the Springboks have the ball around the corner. Franco Mostert, Eben Etzebeth, Sia Khaleesi is captaining this week, Peter Steff, and Dwayne Vermeulen. Like, it's just a constant big around the corner of big men running at you. And certainly Japan would want to stand up to it, but they also don't want to get broken. It's a scary game for Japan.
Like even outside the forwards, Pollard running into Tamora is something that I don't think Japan would like either.
Not a fan of any of it.
I don't know. They definitely match up at a deficit. But then what's great about Japan is they sometimes when they're able to dictate their tempo, the game kind of ceases to be about that, and it's more about speed and accuracy, which is something that Japan do rival anyone at when they can set that
especially
pace.
as it's the first game in these conditions for the Springboks.
Could
very
be
humid and hot. If Japan can move it around, they could tire them out, and they could just make them feel not themselves, which is everything that they're going to want. And certainly that opening blitz that they like to do in the first half will be vital if they're to stand up.
To be honest, you'll know exactly how this is going to go if the first 20 minutes are tight at all. I think so. Then the Springboks are absolutely bull rushing them for the rest of the game. But it's if Japan can, like you say, start like an absolute like a rocket out. They really do. When they have it their way, they set the pace and dictate the tempo and look excellent at very high speeds. Very few breakdowns. They can keep the ball alive. Good attacking kicks, good probing catches, and good tries, because their wingers are devastating. And it'll be, like you say, the intrigue is whether that standing deep and shifting wide will actually pay the dividends against what has been a very impressive South African defensive system.
And if they are just too deep to shut down, will the Boks make the adjustment to keep will the wingers keep their discipline and stay wide, and will Lekanyo Am sort of lead the defence on a bit of a push up and drift as opposed to just a push straight up? It'll be curious to see that. But generally, just a good test for both sides. I think both sides are going to get a good bit of learning from it.
Absolutely.
And, touch wood, no injuries. But outside of that, I think it's going to be a good hit out for both teams.
Absolutely.
And I think the Boks are going to win.
I think the Boks are going to win as well. And Razzie checking off his little lists in advance of the World Cup, and one of them's getting that win back.
Put this to bed.
So I suspect he probably will.
Yes.
But it would be nice to see Japan be a bit competitive. It's a good preparation for the I suppose the Ireland test really to come as well, because Ireland kind of play that physical game, and the Springboks play an extreme version of that as well. So it makes a lot of sense for both teams, I think. The arranging of this fixture.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good one to watch on Friday evening.
Indeed.
And I suppose we'll move on as well to the next test. We're going to do the double header, the second leg of the Scotland-Georgia fixtures.
Yes.
Obviously the first one we'll have to review that in the context of this preview, but this one's going to be played also on Friday at 7:30pm Irish time in Murrayfield, and it's going to be reffed by Roman Poit.
Who's happy he's not working on Friday? This guy. Yes.
So you'll get to watch. There is a fair bit of rugby happening this Friday, actually. Three games on,
including that previous one.
But just looking back on Tbilisi's events, obviously Scotland last week became the first Tier 1 nation to go travel to the Lions Den in Tbilisi and give the Lelos a game and a hit out there. And they didn't sleep on them. They picked Greg Laidlaw, Finn Russell. They got Johnson back in there. Pretty much looked like their strongest squad or strongest team.
The three-quarter line with ball in hand in that game from Scotland were outstanding, and in particular Finn Russell was just outstanding. And they caught the Georgians off guard completely. The Georgians couldn't and didn't seem to attempt to try and slow up the ball, which was crucial. And then their defence around the corner, they just had never faced anything really like what that Scotland offence can bring, and they weren't able to put it under any kind of pressure. And then Scotland just tore them open time and time again. Finn Russell was outstanding. He is a beautiful attacking footballer.
It was a great recognition on Scotland's part, and on Gregor Townsend's part. He has to get a lot of credit for it. It was a recognition of their strengths and Georgia's strengths and how to make the game work for them. And really, like, those first 20 minutes were what killed the game. Like, obviously they were 20 points up after that 20-minute period, and we've said about Georgia before, they're front runners. Ideally they can't really chase games, and it was just game over from then. They got blitzkrieged,
but then they did keep getting their fair share of tries as the game went on. They maintained a sense of ruthlessness. They kept Finn Russell on until about 70 minutes.
Gave him a lot of minutes, which was like potentially risky.
He was enjoying himself.
And also you were very much seeing the lack of a seven, their seven from Georgia. Like there was no sense of upsetting the offensive breakdown of Scotland or harassing the 10, which are both jobs you would associate with a number 7.
Indeed, and there were loads of areas that Georgia were. I thought from Scotland's perspective, again, I just thought Willem Nel at tight head had a massive
huge game,
and actually the first 3 scrums he really struggled on, got pinned in 2 of them, and was lucky not to be in the other one. But he really was up for the fight and was showing it in the loose, and ended up turning it around and getting a penalty of his own, and even making the Georgians second guess about taking scrums near the line. Such was his proficiency in that area. He is an extremely important player to this Scotland team.
He's vital. He's the man you can back to keep a
without him,
go against a tier 1 scrum. Because otherwise they are melted and mulched.
But with him, they're damn confident.
I
mean, the turnaround from the first game against France without him to the second game with him was mighty impressive. And then to go into, like, you talk about Tbilisi being a lion's den. It really is if you're a tight head prop forward.
Exactly.
And
like
he stood up. Like,
they are literally elite in they're not elite in any other areas apart from scrum, where they genuinely do stack up against tier 1
sort
opposition.
Of wrestling. After the contact wrestling, like, their position and spacing is very often haywire, but as soon as the contact happens, they show how good they are. I mean, that's when you you see the benefits of all that tire lifting they do.
They're freaky strong,
incredibly strong. They're all wrestlers, so it's like you actually manage to prise into a hole, and then as soon as they get a hold on you, the contact becomes a negative one. So it's just about making sure the contact is happening on your terms, where you want it, and that's Scotland were great at doing that. I'm just on from Georgia's perspective. It's obviously massively disappointing, the showing that ended up being. It was a matter of just not on this level, boys, and that was really what the message was. And to be fair, it was thoroughly deserved. Scotland really played a very smart game. Really did take it to the Georgians in the areas that they knew they could test. But from Georgia's perspective, things like their exit play, just some of their endeavour in the middle of the park, was not really where it should have been. They like to set up camp and go through phases and slowly do so, but just there was no real creativity in how they moved themselves around the pitch. Their defensive line speed isn't really all there. It should be. They should be pressing up and getting in the face a bit more and pressuring the Scots, which they didn't. But also, they are really suffering for, and it's something I've been thinking, like, literally this whole World Cup cycle, thinking, like, Georgia really could compete. Like, they have the strength, they have the scrum. They can, if they can get things like line out and maul drive going, they can definitely compete. But one thing they just haven't found in this 4 years is an elite 10, or at least a really good 10. A smart kicking option.
They have Lobzanidze, who's
and like Matthias Veli at fullback, but they don't play him into it enough. They don't use his left boot enough. They use him to kick long
slow
kicks.
If it has to go 3 passes to get out to him, their positioning and their depth, their spacing in general is pretty poor, and then their passing is a little slow and inaccurate. Like, there was one moment in the game at the weekend where there was a try on, and then they were a bit laboured in getting from right side of the pitch to the left, and then ended up forcing a pass, and then out it went into touch.
They were definitely shocked, and that result will hurt them, but it'll help them in the long run. But for this World Cup cycle, I think it'll hurt them.
It is, but it is what's concerning for me. Just to wrap up on Georgia before you go on, is between that game, which was probably one of the biggest things ever in their home game, and then the Italy game last year. While you're right in saying good lessons learned for
No,
them,
they need more of those games.
They do.
They do. They don't get enough games against tier 1 teams, and it's going to take a few of them to learn to develop their game a bit more.
Yeah, but it's making me fearful for their World Cup hopes in what is the pool of death with some other class teams.
In terms of this week's upcoming game for Scotland and Georgia, in terms of what Scotland are looking to get out of it, I'm curious just to see whether there's sort of a risk element in terms of their selection. I know we won't harp too much on selection because we don't have the team sheet, but if they go for Finn or if they go for Hastings matters. Finn, you would feel, has everything he needs to have out of this warm-ups. But there is a risk involved. If you drop Finn, if you drop Nell, if you drop Johnson, that things could get a little stuttery. The Georgians still have their ways about them, and it would be a risk to take off your tight head and your 10, just given how green in the gills Adam Hastings has looked at virtually every turn when he's been in a Scotland jersey.
True.
And how wily the Georgians can be. I mean, Scotland are going to want a big win here. They're going to want the nice Murrayfield send-off to go into the World Cup after that initial horrendous performance in Lyon against France.
It's all been positive since
feeling
then.
Quite positive. So that's going to be what they're looking for the game. From Georgia's point of view, you were sort of touching on a lot of it there, but I think there's a whole load of cramming that they have to do in terms of getting right for the World Cup. I think one key area, you touched on their line speed, it definitely does need to improve, but the most important thing is just they're not committing any numbers to rucks, and they need to actively change that mindset. It works for some teams, the All Blacks and Wales, when you can spread across the pitch. But you can't, you're not used to playing at this kind of pace. You're going to be playing against teams who are helter-skelter.
You're also not bringing an aggressive blitz at the moment either. So
I know, I appreciate the blitz point, but I actually think more important is the breakdown area. They are excellent wrestlers, naturally. They need to get into the breakdown. They need to be disruptive. They need to make every ball slow. They need to make ball carriers who you're tackling fall on the wrong side and make it slow and Georgian. They know how to make the game slow when they have the ball. They need to learn how to make it slow when the opposition has the ball.
That's against Wales, against Fiji, and against Australia, and even potentially against Uruguay, who can get things off. If you're allowing them to get 2-second rucks off it in sequence, they're not going to defend them.
No, it's not good. It's not good, exactly, and that's the area that they need to improve on. They just need to be able to slow teams down. And then in terms of their line-out drive, which is going to be vital to them, they did go to it a lot. It is quite competent when it gets formed, but it's also too slow, and it needs to be smoother. The transition from line out to maul needs to be much smoother.
Yeah, for sure. I like that their instinct, more so than some other tier 2 teams who get sloppy and get caught with the ball in the middle of the maul. They tend to be good at getting it to the back, but they are, you're right, just a little bit slow in everything that they do.
Yeah, they like the security of possession, and there's merit to it as well. They'll throw to 2 and make sure the ball is at the back, and then we start pushing. But teams are just going to be
They'll need a bit more endeavour than that, though, to get offensive line out mauls off. You can't go to 2 every time.
No, I appreciate that.
That was something they got wrong last weekend. They literally, whenever they tried to maul, they just jumped to 2. And Scotland are a very disciplined team in terms of how they line up on defence. They're in a Six Nations tournament where they're up against bigger packs pretty much every game, with the exception of the Italy one. So they're pretty wily in their maul defence, as they have to be. So jumping at 2 all day long just is telegraphed and makes it too easy for a top tier side like Scotland. It's a good lesson for them, because it is it's
the kind of thing that just is a try against Spain or Romania or Russia and every time.
Well, this is the point was they were unbeaten in Tbilisi for 3 years, wasn't it? Going into this game, and it's they haven't played an opposition that they weren't ranked above in that time. So it's in that stadium. So it's important that they get more games like this. It's full credit to Scotland for going out there, and full credit to Gregor Townsend and Finn Russell and everyone who performed on the day for getting out of what could have been a sticky banana skin one, could have been a knee-knocking, confidence-shaking one, but as it turned out was actually a really creditable thing that they did, and they did it very, very well. They played a perfect game.
Tremendously impressed with Scotland. And just one other area that Georgia, I think, need to work on ahead of this game. So many work-ons for them. This is why it's a case of cramming. But with ball in hand, they were quite slow and stuttery, and I have seen them not be that, in terms of game plans and everything else from where they were at in Rugby Europe. Granted, not facing the same physicality or line speed, but they did move the ball across the pitch. They did vary who was kicking the ball for them, and they need to be braver. They need to be braver. They need to try and get the ball quicker. They're big men who are winning contacts. They need to get the hands free and get on each other's shoulder and get offloads going in that tight area. And then when they get a bit of momentum, use it quick. Even if you're going narrow, use it quick. And in terms of their exit plays, granted, Sutskaridze was a huge part of that, having him and the wide channels rampaging, but Beko Gorgodze could fill that role.
Yeah.
They need to spread it across the pitch.
Just a bit more courage in what they're going
exactly,
for.
Exactly.
Because
back themselves to spread it across the pitch. Practice it in training. You're going to need to be able to pass the ball and move it around.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the opposition half, do what you do. When you get into their 22, that's when the very interesting Georgian picture, which they created for a period in that Scottish game. They were already 30 points down at the time.
The problem, yeah.
But they did create like a period where they were in that Scottish 22, just sucking the oxygen out of a team. Yeah. And if they can do that early in a game to anybody, especially the likes of Fiji, they could soak the energy out of them.
They could.
And that's the game plan. But they have to figure out a way to get from in their own half to down the field, and it's just not good enough to be slow and stuttery and then with loose box kicks from Lobsanidze. That's not the way to do it.
Also, it's important for them that they don't start as sluggishly and as slowly as they did both against Scotland and against the Southern Kings 5 days previously as well. They got blitzkrieged in the first 20 minutes in both of those games, and as we've said before, they are not chasers of a game. They are front runners who need to be dictating tempo and controlling the ball and frustrating teams. Yeah. So, like, against attacking-minded teams, which Scotland obviously are, but their whole group is as well. Like, even down as far as Uruguay, all of these teams that they're going to be up against want to throw the ball around and play a quick game. They need to get better at slowing that down. Otherwise, they could be enough for a long World Cup, because it hasn't really gone their way in terms of their preparations. I think Georgia's preparations have been a bit stuttery, a bit very disappointing with Sutskeridze obviously gone out. Yeah. But and now Gorgodze coming back in is an interesting one. We may see him this weekend.
I hope we do see him in Murrayfield.
But they need to basically get more aggressive when they don't have the ball, and more recognise that what they need to make happen and what they can't allow to happen. Because they seem to be a bit slow on the uptake when the game's getting away from them in the first even 5 minutes, and they can cough up tries, and that really is an impasse for them, because the way they want to play the game is not going to lend itself to that.
They're playing Scotland. Scotland will be ruthless again if they get ahead of steam up. They will be ruthless. They'll take the scores.
Definitely.
And likewise their pool opponents. Yeah. So are we saying Scotland to round it off in style in Murrayfield?
I think so. Yeah.
Murrayfield's a tough place to go.
Murrayfield's a tough place to go if you're England.
The All Blacks struggled the last time they went there.
Yeah. So I'm fearful for the Georgians actually with each passing day. I've been very optimistic for their chances for the last 4 years. I just think it's not probably coming good. The picture I'm seeing at the moment is not great, and just if they were in any other pool, I'd still give them their fair shake. But it's the fact that they're up against like Fiji as their tier 2 opposition. If there's a real chance of them finishing 4th and missing out on the qualification,
which would be a disaster.
And then there's an outside chance of them like being rocked for confidence and then slipping up against Uruguay. I think they're even more disastrous.
I admire Uruguay. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell. I think Spain did a tour of Uruguay and Brazil and put it up to them. Yeah. And Spain are so far from Georgia's level.
It's true.
Uruguay are just going to be shocked by Georgia's physicality. They're going to be shocked by everything they see in this World Cup. I like them a lot, but they're going to be shocked.
Yeah, no, I'd imagine that's true. That's why I'm saying it's a very outside chance.
Very outside.
It's good. Like
it's significantly less likely that Uruguay beat Georgia than Georgia beat Fiji.
Yeah, probably.
100%.
Yeah. But yes, all that being said, we do want to see signs of improvement in those areas from Georgia, and also Scotland. Scotland are just riding momentum at the moment and really are taking a lot into the World Cup. So it would be nice for us if Georgia could shock them and maybe make it all physical and slow.
There is a debate about whether they want to see if another tight head can stand up to the Georgians, or just be protective of the result and give Nell another shout. But I suspect the Georgian scrum will come firing if nothing else does.
I'd say naming Nell on the bench is probably wise.
Yeah, probably.
You don't want him getting injured at this juncture. Same with Finn.
Yeah, on the bench as well.
Bring him in as the emergency Finn button.
Break glass
in case of Georgian maul tries. And yes, all that kind of stuff. But it's a risk in picking things like especially really both of those players, Nell and Finn. They're two irreplaceables for the challenges to come. So there's a risk going up against Georgia and getting lumps taken out of you the week or 2 weeks before.
Always.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I suppose we move on. Yeah. I said you didn't get a prediction there, but I should imagine you're saying Scotland.
I said Scotland. Yeah, Scotland. Comfortably.
Yeah, I
hopefully the Georgians stand up, but probably not.
We just want to see signs of improvement from them for sure.
Yeah,
but I suppose we'll move on and go look at another game that is happening on Friday. This is at 7:45, and it's in St James's Park. It's England versus Italy.
They're heading the wrong way.
Going north instead of south. Yes, indeed. That's true. Like, what are we all doing? Like, as you were rightly saying, the Springboks are getting so much.
Springboks are over there right now and commenting on how difficult the conditions are and how it's going to take them a while to adjust. Meanwhile, our Celtic friends are just hanging out in our hometowns, beating the shite out of each other. It's a dubious one.
One would think, but it is. You do want the home send-off factor as well, and I get that. Obviously, their Twickenham send-off was the other week, and that's obviously it went swimmingly well from their perspective. This time, it'll be our last home game against Italy. They're looking for a by the numbers, shellacking cricket score type job that they normally end up doing against the Italians. They like one thing about the English attitude and approach to the game, which is really admirable. Like, it's something that as Irish people we tend not to understand, is that like their kind of level of hubris and belief serves them well when they're up against tier 2 opposition, because they really do not struggle anywhere near as often or as in similar ways to some other teams.
Japan came to Twickenham and gave them a fright.
Except last year when Japan came to Twickenham, that was towing the line of what is hubris and what is actually arrogance, and they were being a bit ridiculous in their prep and lead up and chat, and they got duly reminded of why that's a silly idea, but they did still end up winning. And it is something when they click and when they believe they're the stronger of the two teams, they really do play some really fine rugby when that's the case. They kind of feel the pressures off them and they try to get to express themselves.
They're just in such a good place right now. It really is just a party send off. I don't really know what they're going to pick, but either way it's just going to be about exerting that physical dominance, exploiting the weak Italian defence in the middle of the park and in the wide channels, getting just ahead of steam up in the tight areas, and then moving the ball across the pitch with some sharp passing, and there will be tries all day.
This is for them, especially if they're to pick anything like their strongest squad, but strongest side. But I don't even think they need to. But there are just mismatches all over the park here. Like Italy's tackling is very poor in general. They may have slightly improved in that area compared to the Six Nations, but then their defensive system leaves some crazy holes from time to time when you go through the multi-phase.
Italy's defence at the best of times is floundering and crazy and porous, and England make good defences look like that. So it's a dangerous matchup for them. I don't know that England are going to get any learnings out of it, just a bit more confidence. They're looking to ride them. They may try somebody else as a backup 8, maybe Wilson as a backup 8.
It would be useful to do that, like especially because they really don't have an alternate to Billy Vunipola. But like, you know, when you have a player of that caliber, you're never going to have a replacement for him.
No, like indeed.
They have their world class operators littered throughout the team. Which is something that Eddie Jones has obviously emphasised in his prep. He's saying he wants at least 5 world class operators throughout the team to go and take on the World Cup, which is like they definitely have that at least. Their strongest team is still like very, very strong, arguably up there with the best in the world. They are right up there as contenders in many people's books. They're favourites. You can see why they're riding momentum. This year's performance, the evidence this year is pretty overwhelming that they're there to play. They're there to play a physical game
and a sharp passing game with some kicking variation in there. They have good distributors in there, and I suspect they'll be looking to show that off whoever they pick this weekend. From Italy's perspective, it's a curious test. It's a very similarly daunting proposition to their 2 games against South Africa and New Zealand, and so they'll just be looking to take some confidence out of it. I mean, they've got some great players. I would love to see them. I mean, it's like sacrilege to say, but it's been true for a while that Parise's been off the pace. I would love to see them move Parise to the bench and bring back Negri into the starting team, and then you have that Bram Stain, Jake Pellegrini and Negri back row that's actually very competent, very strong, can get some plays off, and that's what they're going to be looking to see. Hopefully just those guys standing up, disrupting English ball, getting 1 or 2 plays off themselves. And then I think crucially we saw a little indication into the Carlo Canna at 10, Tommy Allen at 12 axis.
We got a little bit of minutes in the last game because Canna came off the bench.
I'd love to see it again. I think Tito Tibaldi's kicking game has been loose and not great so far this year, and Canna provides a very excellent kicking option. And I think if they are to keep the score down and get some positives out of this game, pinning the ball into the corner is an avenue to do so, and then holding the ball. So for sure, just keeping it tight in terms of allowing those big men to disrupt getting the ball deep into the corner, and then they do have, if they can get a bit of territory and possession, they do have some decent outside backs who can make things happen.
Yeah.
And I think the longer that the game goes on, and it's tight, the more Italy are going to be able to take out from it. If they can get a narrow score at half time, if they can stay in the game till 60 minutes, those are the kind of things that they're going to be. They'll take huge positives out of the game if they can do that.
For sure.
And they're not going to want what's likely to come is that big shellacking. They're not going to want to see that ahead of their pool.
Yeah.
They're going to want to see some avenues for success.
That being said, this English team have started quickly all year.
That's true. That's true.
And that is obviously Conor O'Shea's ideal scenario. Is exactly what you're saying. Like we see
that's what they're going for.
One of those gritty Italy performances where they're in the game and make it a contest and have the home commentators getting increasingly more frustrated watching the game as the balls being kicked back and forth and they're not running into tries that you're meant to get against Italy.
But they have to be a little smarter for it to work, because their tight five aren't nearly as strong as even they used to be. They're a bit looser in the tight five. They have great back rows. They have some ball and hand techers
for the first time, really.
And what they need from Carlo Canna or whoever comes in at 10 is a sharp kicking game to get territory. And then from territory comes a bit of possession in territory. And then, that's where your tries come from. That's what they're looking for, but it has to be smarter than it was in the old school days of we can front it up for 60 minutes because we have a competent pack for 60 minutes, then they get tired and subs come on and we lose. It's good for them to last against this England team. It's going to take a little more brainier effort than you're used to seeing from them.
This is true. I would be very surprised if that were to come to pass, and I think even Conor O'Shea would. I'm pretty sure this is going according to script from an English perspective, which is them being far too strong for Italy, far too fast for Italy, far too good, and just scoring more tries by. They'll be no
better or worse than what Italy have coming in their pool.
No, well, that's it. Like, it's a good hit out from Italy's perspective to just get acclimatized to what. They're going to have to be exposed to when they're playing both the Springboks and the All Blacks. So it's getting them up to that level for sure. Whether they'll be able to live with it or not remains to be seen. From England's point of view, it's probably an okay thing. Eddie Jones is definitely he was the one. I think he was the first in the Northern Hemisphere to out and out name his 31-man squad.
He might have been the first. Full stop.
He might have been actually because he was a while ago. But so they've been together for quite a while now. They're well adjusted. They know exactly what the squad that it's going is. So there's none of that confusion or kind of talk around it. And they've also focused on getting up to match speed much quicker than some of the other sides in the Northern Hemisphere. So this is just another kind of bit of momentum that they're trying to tack on to obviously what was a great performance the other week. They're obviously looking for that confidence game, looking to get themselves buoyed up and ready for a tough challenge ahead in their pool. They have some good challenges upcoming, so this will be a good send-off for them in St James's Park, and hopefully, from their point of view, they're looking to put up a bit of score lovely tries and see the boys off.
It's nice to see St James's Park getting more rugby games
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
It's a damn shame Newcastle are down in the Premiership.
That's true too.
It does feel like untapped territory that's eager to embrace the sport.
Absolutely.
It's a good see England going there. Yes. We should see Ireland do a bit more of that, to be honest with you. They play so many games. We live in Dublin, so it's great for us, but they play so many games in Dublin, it's crazy.
Yes, it's true. There are other stadiums in other places around the country, and that's good from England's point of view. But I suppose we'll move on. You don't have anything to add on prediction wise. You're not seeing the upset Parise hat-trick.
I think Italy. I think Italy by 20.
Italy by 14 maybe.
Maybe one score. No. England by lots.
England by lots.
But hopefully Italy will get a few tries.
That would be nice. And they have they scored 85 points or something against Russia.
52 to 24.
That would be nice. That would be a bit annoying from an English perspective. That loose defensive if they get into
England go 52-0 up.
That would be even funnier. I suspect maybe not. But I suppose we'll move on from that one. There's not all that much to say about the England-Italy game.
No.
And then we'll look at another game which is actually similar enough in terms of mismatches. We have the All Blacks v Tonga, which is in Waikato Stadium, which is New Zealand's send-off for the World Cup.
Send-off.
Home send-off.
Taking place this Saturday, Irish time, 3:35 a.m. Thanks for that one, boys. Lovely scheduling.
That was the same when it was the New Zealand World Cup as well. Wasn't it? It was all kinds of crazy hours.
Afternoon game for them there in Waikato Stadium. It's sort of the last hit out for both teams ahead of this World Cup. The All Blacks we'll just be looking for this to be smooth sailing, for everything to be looking sharp and nice and lots of tries.
Yeah. Much the same as the goal for England as well against Italy.
Feeling confident. They have a different sort of vibe to England in the sense that they are straight up against it. Opening game, the Springboks. Here we go.
That's definitely true in terms of their development, what they're looking to do. So with that in mind, would you they may name close to a starting side to get that hit out?
Yeah, I would suspect that they will. They're pretty. They don't tend to play games either in terms of like hiding guys like Ireland do with Sexton. You don't see that from the All Blacks. Barrett will be there, and they'll be looking to impose their will on the Tongans, both physically and just in terms of their running game. I think especially their running game, they're going to be keen to get it looking precisely sharp. Like if the Tongans knock it on in the contact in the midfield, All Blacks should be thinking tries. Like it will be a huge confidence boost for them what happened when they beat Australia in Bledisloe 2, but they need to build on that, because outside of that game they have been less than assured with ball in hand, and they need to be against a tier 2 opposition who have struggled a lot this year. They need to be ruthless, picking them apart, moving them around the pitch and taking chances when they come.
Definitely. Like as far as the test is concerned, obviously the Springbok one is what they have a mind towards as well, what they'll be looking towards. And Tonga, as far as yes, they are tier 2, obviously many rungs below, but they're what they are is a big pack as well. So it's a similar, from New Zealand's point of view, tactically what they'll want to do. Like maybe you want to take the Tongans on at their own game and break them mentally by getting at them scrum time, maul time, in the physicality, and then going out wide.
Yes, that could be the alternate route. That would be consistent with what the All Blacks have been doing.
True, but I would kind of prefer to see them. Rather than obviously knowing that they're probably more capable than Tonga in that area anyway, despite Tonga being big. I'm sure that they could go into that arm wrestle of a game and win it. But just with the Springbok test coming up, I think it would behoove them more to be trying to target flooding the outside of that 13 channel for one, get their centres getting things off. Because that's what they struggled with against the Springboks. They didn't get anything. They couldn't get outside arm, bar one instance where they did, and that yielded a try for Goodhue. They'll want to see more of that. I want to see them trying to resource that area, maybe getting a bit deeper, maybe getting a bit wider.
Let's just have the passing game be as crisp as it can be. That's something they haven't been as sharp in that area for quite a while. You go back to the Ireland game when they were pounding on the Irish line and they had an overlap and they didn't use it. Those are the kind of things that you'll want to rectify. They have their squad now, and while they are physically up to the task, and listen, if they can revert to a sort of type wherein they are that ruthless All Blacks, then the sort of forward oriented experiment over the last couple of years could make sense, in the sense that they can now stand up to all these packs that might have been otherwise ready to run over them, but they also have that attacking game. But they do need now to more than ever to show what they can do in attack, and I think this game is going to be good for confidence in that way, because the Tongans don't defend like the South Africans.
No, they do not.
They don't get out of the line that much. They're going to get off forward space and time to the All Black runners and give them a chance to get some stuff going. Definitely. So they will not want errors. They will not want frustrating plays. They'll just want it to be smooth.
Absolutely.
At set piece and with ball in hand, and defensively just all smooth.
That's one of the main focuses, I think, for all tier 1 sides this week, in terms of their warm-up games. Set piece will be massive for all of them. They don't want to see sloppy line out execution, sloppy receipt or kickoffs as well. All these little things that are just coach killing will be very annoying to see. They'll want to be absolutely polished and sharp, particularly, as you say, New Zealand and South Africa as well, because they have their big test in the first weekend. So that they kind of obviously have to be primed in a different way to a lot of the other tier 1 sides as far as when they're peaking. I'd definitely be curious to see that. It's a good hit out for their squad locks. Obviously, again with Brodie being out, they're still kind of in a toss-up land. I think all of them have capability.
Tuipolotu might be in my first All Black team.
Just as far as a like for like in terms of that physicality. If you're missing Brodie, he does bring that size. I think keep
Sam Whitelock for his experience. Maybe move Sam Whitelock to loosehead lock, which would be controversial, and then have that impact that Scott Barrett can bring off the bench.
I think that makes a lot of sense to my reckoning anyway. But it is a chance for all of those locks to put their hands up in advance of the big test as well. Because the Tongans are pretty big in that area. In the pack, they are physically large, obviously, and actually across the pitch
they've got some Super Rugby experience in there. Sam Mousey and the like. in terms of what they're going to bring, obviously when they're in a sort of a Georgian way, when they get down to business, they can slow things up and get a decent pick and go game going, which All Blacks don't usually love to defend against. But how they make that picture happen is the bigger question.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough. Like watching them in this year's Pacific Nations Cup, it was just a bit annoying. Like they were obviously just lesser than all of their opponents in terms of with the exception of Canada, where they did get the win, but that's Canada are like nowhere near this level. No, their halfbacks just haven't really been dictating enough. Their kicking game, they do sometimes go to it, but it's a bit loose. They rarely kick to contests. They're not the best at playing territory, which is what they really should be playing, given the fact that their offense is based on a pick and go type game, kind of like an Exeter multi-phase that they go through. So yeah, it would be good to see them get that kicking game a bit off, get a few territorial kicks in, and be able to pressure the All Blacks that way. It would also be good to just see them try with a little bit more pace and a little bit more offloading out of the contact.
They have Islander blood in them.
They do.
They can play with ball in hand. They can hold and pass a rugby ball.
Yeah,
and I think you actually will see that. You will see them sort of primed athletes ready to go. I mean, I think they've had their Pacific Nations Cup, which was a rinky-dinky tournament, but the Tongans do have a way about them.
They do.
They more than the Samoans, who we'll touch on in a moment. They rise to the World Cup occasion.
They do.
Not quite like anybody, and even when they have a squad full of no-name lads, they do manage to put in performances and shift. They do tend to be physically up for the challenge, and they do tend to get plays off. They just seem focused and enjoying it. And when they do their war dance before games, it is of all of them the most intense, and they tend to back it up on the pitch. They are a very fun watch. You can't sleep on them in a World Cup.
In a World Cup you can't at all. That being said, this is the last game before the World Cup.
No, indeed, and it's against the All Blacks in New Zealand. So I suspect. No, I'll just be looking to see them get some plays off. That's it. That's literally even if the offloading is loose and they end up getting punished for it, I would sooner see that, because I think they need to be primed. They need to be bringing a bit of that to the World Cup. It's a low bar. Just get some plays off, and we'll see how it goes. Defensive plays, offensive plays. See what you can get off against a very good All Black team in New Zealand. The result isn't important. We know it's only going to go.
It'd be nice if they could grab a try or two, though.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would be pretty helpful for confidence. But that being said, I think it's.
All Blacks
all day. Pretty much a clear-cut All Blacks win.
Yes.
And it'll be a good send-off. It'll obviously be kind of nice little way to say fairly well to the boys before they fly off to Japan. And just a little mention, shout out to the Rugby World Cup hype video that Tonga put up on Twitter the other day, which was pretty sweet, getting me buzzed for their chances,
reminding us of what they can bring sometimes. The intangible factor that is the Tongan mentality is real.
Ask France about it. So I suppose we'll move on then. There's not much more to be said about that one.
No.
So another game and another final send off. Obviously this is the theme of this weekend, is that everyone's playing their last game. And this is Wallabies versus Samoa.
Good game.
It's going to be played in Sydney, in Western Sydney Stadium, obviously, and it'll be on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Irish time.
All Irish time,
and refed by Paul Williams as well.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's fine. Similar to New Zealand, I suppose. Really, the Wallabies will be looking to get a bit momentum back. Obviously, coming off the back of the disappointment that was Bledisloe 2, but. Now
that that's sort of settled, the dust is settled over that, and Bledisloe isn't as big a deal this year as they seem to make it out to be. It's a couple of games like against New Zealand. Let's just see how right you are, and I think they will be very, very pleased with that performance in Perth. They have quite a bit to build on. James O'Connor at 13 has been a revelation.
Absolutely.
We had heard earlier in the month that David Pocock was to come back for this game. There hasn't been a whole lot of news out of the Wallaby camp since. We know that Jordan Pataya is
not
injured,
going to make it, which would be nice for him to have a hit out. Actually, a cap maybe before the World Cup would have been good. But Czech is obviously they're still kind of betting in process to be done with even their now starting combination of was it Curran and O'Connor, Karevi and O'Connor with Curran on the wing. With Corabetti on the ring. Curran was the one missing out, and it was rightly as well, because he wasn't producing in the same way. But there's still obviously combinations that need betting in. They've kind of come across a back line that has a good balance, but it does take a certain time to get these betted in. Czech as well, same as all the other tier 1 coaches, will be looking to see the set piece be pretty much flawless this week.
Yes.
Like, I'm pretty sure that should they be messing up any of their own set pieces in rather sloppy kind of pre-season-y look and feel with that is when you'll see the worst of the Czech reacts cam. Like, he will definitely be inclined to smash things up if he sees them drop any restarts or something like that.
100%.
So yeah, no, I'm expecting to see an Australia side that are focused on getting those areas right, things like kickoffs, scrums, lineouts, even mauls.
Yeah, they do have to be organised.
They do, and it's something that Czech is a stickler for as well in his teams. Even when he feels he's outmatched as far as the calibre of players on the pitch, he wants to see the players that he does pick getting those areas right. And to be fair, in his tenure, throughout his whole tenure, and all through even in rugby championships, they tend to be very organised in those areas. They tend to catch teams like the Springboks. They've caught out on those exact plays and restarts and things very often. So yeah, he'll be looking to see a good momentum, get momentum back as far as like the Bledisloe 1 test is still something they can cling on to. This is a chance now for them to go out against Samoa, who are a decent squad in of themselves. Definitely can play a bit of footy.
It'll test their defence. It will test their offence. Samoa, they one thing that they haven't got in common with the Italians is that they don't shy out of tackles.
No,
they do make their tackles. I've been sort of impressed with Samoa this year. I was extremely impressed with their attitude in the game in the rain
against Tonga.
Apia against Tonga, when they showed excellent skills, excellent offloading. I played a brave game in the rain, played it smart. Sayuteni that day at 10 was
awesome.
Great.
They've
got great players in the centres. I mean, they can pick two of Fonatia, Lilo and Leua in that centre partnership. Obviously Tim Nanai-Williams, who we
back at 15, scored a try last week against the Heartland 15, the New Zealand Heartland 15.
He's an awesome player. They've got hugely exciting loose forwards, TJ Oani, Chris Vui. How great is he? Mosa's a unit at 8. And even Jack Lamb, Pat's disciple, is another option in there as well. So definitely they have some physical issues and they have some plays-off-isms, and they're certainly not going to be as organised, you would think, as the Wallabies.
No.
But they're going to test them. They're going to test them around the fringes. They're going to test them. They're going to offload the ball. They're going to attack with a bit of fluidity. And if the Wallabies aren't on song in terms of their defensive plays, they will get tries.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And you're right in saying, like, unlike the Italians and just in general tier 2 sides, they are more game for the defensive hustle. Like they'll
the individual tackling tends to be fine.
They're big. The risk is that they're sometimes on the fine line of the law and maybe kind of redlining above the nipple line, so to speak, and risks as far as that's concerned, especially if Australia are successfully moving them around, and they can probably kind of milk a card out of that kind of pressure. But you're right. They're like in the pack and across the back line. They match up physically pretty well. They have obviously Nanai-Williams back, which was something they were missing for the PNC. Like, it was something that was very much a noticeable lack of just dynamism in the back line, which was just a Nanai-Williams shaped hole. They didn't have that other playmaker in the back line.
There were times during this period where Nanai-Williams was a 10, he was just their only. He was just everything about what they were doing as well. So with Sayuteni in and obviously the ancient 2CPC in, having Nanai-Williams bounce off either of those guys is going to be profitable for them.
That's exactly what they need to be getting off. But that being said, from Australia's point of view, they will be looking to see none of that from them. And obviously this was billed as the return of David Pocock. We're not entirely sure if it will be, but that was what Czech has said. I would love to see him out there. He needs a hit out this side of the World Cup anyway.
You would expect, he's not going to get too many easy games in his pool. That's the thing.
That is the thing. He needs to be up to match speed very quickly.
For that Fiji and Wales and Georgia, like, there isn't a game off there.
Exactly.
Uruguay, but that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So it'd be good to see him get a run out. And from Czech's point of view, the whole team will want to look stronger in the contact than they did in Bledisloe 2. They were kind of bullied a little in that.
Totally.
So he'll want to get that area right, regardless of who the player is. He'll just want to see across the pitch improvement, like massive improvement in that area. They don't want to be shocked like that again. And then just another little kind of sub story in this is that Alan Alatoa named in the Australia squad, will go up against his brother.
Yeah, I suspect. I think I've heard that in a few places that they will put Alan Alatoa out at tight head. They are two tight heads, so they won't be scrumming up against one another, but they will be matching up against one another. And it's not often that you see that in a test arena.
Yeah,
two brothers going up against each other. I guess you would have seen it back in the day when Samoa would have played England, Alassana against Manu.
Yes,
but that creates a curious picture. And
Definitely
hopefully one tackles the other. Hopefully, Michael gets one up on Al for the Samoans.
Indeed, one would like to see that.
Yeah, I think of all the games this week, all the Tier 1 v Tier 2 games, the Samoans are better placed than anybody to get a few plays off in this one.
Absolutely.
And the Wallabies will be keen to have that not happen. So I think you'd expect a good game here.
Good game, good contest.
The Wallabies to see at home.
Yeah, well, what the Wallabies want to see, which is part of their game plan, as well as obviously getting the contact right, getting the set piece right, they want tries.
Yes.
And so their passing game needs to be better than it was, because they were duly punished for their looseness in Bledisloe 2 by a very game and very capable All Blacks. So they'll want to see improvement in that area, because for the Wallabies, their whole World Cup chances are pinned on that idea of momentum, which is why this kind of win would be a useful one to get to go into the tournament on a high. Sure. But also, tries, speed and tries, and accuracy of pass.
Yeah.
So, like a few loose or behind the head passes are something that Cheika will be annoyed to see if they're blowing not even clear cut, but potential try scoring opportunities with their own inaccuracy. That's something that will really grate at them. Even if they end up getting the win, if that's a bit sloppy, they'll be disappointed.
We haven't seen either of these two sides in a while.
Yeah,
and it would be cause for alarm for either of them if they're not at the pace.
Sharp. Yeah.
And it's like even Samoa, if it's entirely possible they have a great squad, they do not have the pedigree that Tonga have in terms of showing up for World Cups. No matter what squad they bring, they tend to let themselves down, and if they are loose and all over the place and out of sync, it's not something that I would expect them to rectify going into a tough pool with Japan and Scotland and Ireland. I think they'll struggle if they need to be as sharp as they can be, and I think we'll get an indication as to where they're at this week, more than even from the PNC this week. This game will give us an insight into where they are. And likewise with Australia, they've obviously had a month off after that shellacking, but they do need to hit the ground running.
They definitely do. They're a momentum team, and their World Cup their World Cup kind of history is based on runs of form and runs of momentum, and they need to start to get that going in advance of what is the pool of death. It'd be good test for both of them. It's probably, as you say, the pick of the bunch as far as the Tier 1 versus Tier 2 side games that are going on. But I think these are good. It's good that these are happening in advance of the World Cup anyway, because it's good for the Tier 2 sides to get a sense of what the challenge that's.
I would love to see a few more of these games in the off World Cup years, to be honest with you. I think a lot of these sides, especially given how Tier 2 sides have been performing or Tier 1 sides rather have been building in recent times. I think it will be profitable for the Tier 2 sides to get a feel for what they're doing, because a lot of them are growing, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, just at incredible rates. Like Georgia were shocked by Scotland last week. There is a chance that Samoa gets shocked by Australia, that certainly what was the other game,
Tonga gets shocked by the All Blacks. It shouldn't be that shocking. There's
no shock when it happens against the All Blacks, but a lot of the the gap has narrowed to the All Blacks so much that a lot of the Tier 1 sides are better placed to do that to you than in years gone by. So the Tier 2 teams need to learn that lesson.
Definitely.
But hopefully Samoa put up a bit of a fight and it's an interesting game. Predictions?
Australia by probably 20 plus points. I would like to see Samoa make it just that, like 20 points. I'd like to see if it was like 40 points to 21. That would be a good thing.
32 to 20.
32 to 20 would be very disappointing from Cheika. There'd be all kinds of angry Cheika cam moments in that performance.
That's my prediction. 32 to 20.
You're always rooting for those Tier 2 teams to get some stuff off. Of course I am.
They have it in them.
I know. They just need to believe. Yes. No, I predict a slightly wider margin than that, and Australia to get some off.
Seems more likely, to be fair.
But I suppose we'll park that then, and then move on to what is a very big game for us and for everyone in the Northern Hemisphere. Ireland v Wales.
Always a classic.
Always a classic. Wales kind of uniquely placed as a a tier 1 side who aren't actually getting a home send-off. I think I'm right in saying, in terms of...
Is that it? Yeah, South Africa, I guess.
South Africa, I guess, yeah, but that's slightly
They had
different.
their send-off a month ago.
Yeah, slightly different. Like, yeah, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, Wales have had their home send-off last week, and it didn't really go well. They got...
Yes.
They picked... It was basically dictated by the fact that the squads were finalised this week. They had to pick some of the fringe players, get them all out there, and get some answers.
Resolved the Jared Evans Patchell debacle, which was
night and day,
as we knew it would be. Patchell was, as I always felt, I said it earlier in the show. If Patchell gets given the 10 shirt, he's going to rise to it. He's an excellent player, wonderful footballer, as you say, very similar to Anscombe in a lot of what he does.
Yeah,
and was beautiful when he came on.
Yeah, really did change the game.
Brought them back into it.
Yeah. They did get a few answers as far as that in terms of finalising the squad. It didn't spell good things for their props. They got absolutely bullied, and now obviously, as we said earlier in the show, Samson Lee and Rob Evans gone, cut out of there.
Leon Brown too,
but that was less surprising.
Indeed.
But yeah, so like obviously last week we had Ireland 22, Wales 17 final score in Cardiff. It was one of those a game of two halves kind of thing. Like Ireland were pretty impressive in the first half, admittedly against a Wales side that were a bit loose in terms of what they were trying to do ball in hand. I'm thinking obviously that Stockdale score that came off turnover.
Somebody
ball.
Had said I think it might have been Warren Gatland actually, but somebody I definitely heard say that they were actively trying to offload the ball a bit more, Wales. They were trying to move it a bit more and get some of that sort of 2018 brand Wales attacking play going and sort of add to their versatility as a team. And that the players were just a little bit, even going into the contact, they were focused on where they were going to offload.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't that same impetus on winning the contact. And as it happens, Ireland had introduced a James Ryan and a Kilcoyne to the fray and just generally were dominating that area and kind of shocked Wales, which you don't often see no matter what Wales is out there in Cardiff. So that would be something that's a little unpleasant for them. And the scrum as well would be a concern for them. But from Ireland's perspective, I thought it was very positive. I thought Ryan
much improved. How could it not be? It was always anticipated that there would be a bounce back factor from what was an absolutely shocking shellacking at the hands of England, and something that obviously Joe will want to have addressed. Like, it was always seemingly a risk in my mind. Like these warm up fixtures, we always seem to swap games with England and Wales. I think there is a prior agreement that is long standing. It means we're playing them. From Ireland's point of view, it feels like ridiculous prep for the challenge that Japan and Scotland are going to bring in a week's notice.
Not to mention the fact that they played England when England were so primed and ready, and
that's kind of the point.
It was very, very silly. But this one was a bit more real. It was nice to see some attacking plays got off.
True.
I thought the whole sequence for the opening try was everything that you would want to see out of Ireland, in the sense that it was. Wales had the ball and their attack was shut down by two colossal defensive tackles from James Ryan.
Initially from kick return, he looked to go around James Ryan, but it didn't happen. Ryan made the hit and made it very physically, stopped him behind where the game line was, and then a couple of phases later another big tackle from Ryan means that they end up having to kick it away.
Yes, and then Addison claims it in the air magnificently, dances a bit, ball comes out of the breakdown, goes straight to Kilcoyne, who makes a nice little arcing inward run,
bursting through Navidi actually, which was
catching Navidi off completely off guard. It was a bit soft, but he trundled for a line break. The ball came out the other end, and Carty took an angle on Navidi again, got an inside ball off to Conway, who ran a lovely little lazy run through the gap across, weaving his way to the left hand side of the field to feed Stockdale for a try,
which is a good instinct in an Irish team.
Yes, and Joe Schmidt himself had said after the game that was called, Carty's little break and offload was called in advance by Conway, who had noticed that little spatial error in the Welsh defence. And Conway's form is great.
It's undeniable.
It's great to see the two wingers hungry and hunting for tries.
Linking up. This is good, because it's has been an area of concern from our point of view. The lack of a clinical edge in the back three.
If you're gonna play like an old school Springbok team, you need to have your Habana, Peterson, hungry wingers who are going to grab the tries when they're there. And Conway is looking like Conway was a superstar at schoolboy level. He was a superstar, and he has never quite lived up to his potential since then. And now he seems to be living up to his potential.
Yeah, he's polished every aspect of his game down at Munster. He's become pretty much a stalwart in their team. For good reason. And he's really grown in the last 4 years when you think about it in terms of his progression. And where we were kind of humming and hawing saying that like Keith Earls has obviously been a stalwart there, but he doesn't give you that grab a try when it's not on kind of factor. He goes back into context. Stockdale does grab tries out of nowhere, as we saw. You're making the point that he's the only back three player that Ireland have that is quite all black in that regard, where like as soon as that pass from Shingler went to Deck and Stockdale managed to be the first one there and get the toe on it, you just knew it's like there's no other outcome from this other than a try for Jacob.
Like you can describe it as just an interception or a present, but those tries have to be taken, and there are only certain guys who can take those tries. And a lot of guys wouldn't take the try if it's just a loose ball. Some guys would dive on it, some guys would fly hack it and miss kick it, some guys just wouldn't have the pace to cover that ground. Stockdale has it all. The ball was there loose in the ground, and it was like not going to be any other outcome than an Irish try, and to have a winger who can do that is fantastic. So there were definitely positives there from Ireland's perspective. There were negatives as well. The scrum was a huge positive.
Yes, it was.
Andrew Porter covering Loosehead and demolishing Samson Lee and Leon Brown was a positive.
Was a huge positive. Tyke Furlong looking bullish off the bench, excellent
huge.
Too. John Ryan rock solid and set piece. Kilcoyne, obviously that whole Munster front row I thought stood up massively, which really gives you confidence, because we're such
those boys are great.
We're such a forward oriented team that we need two front row options. We need two whole front rows that can be picked.
We have it,
and we have it now.
Munster's front row, who started the game against Wales, are one of the most phenomenal scrummaging units in Europe.
They are. They put it up to Saracens.
They put it up to everybody, and despite like not weighing that much, they're excellent technical scrummagers. And it was all about Kilcoyne in the first half, but then at the very start of the second, you saw John Ryan get some lovely scrummaging off against his opposite man. I think it was Rob Evans at the time. Could be wrong about that,
But it was a very encouraging performance. Obviously that engine room as well, which I suspect now, especially with the omission of Dev Toner, than that news breaking yesterday, the strongest team that we can pick has James Ryan and Ian Henderson starting in the rows.
Physicality.
With the game that Ireland want to bring, that has to be the case. And the fact that they've been bullied by the massive England team twice this year leads me to believe that is what they've landed on. And obviously Klein's inclusion in the squad is to bring that heft even in the background, but I still find that a little bit dubious. I would like to have the Dev option anyway, but we don't, and we'll have to come to peace with that.
We have made our peace with it,
definitely. But as far as Ireland's concerned, a few very, very positive aspects. I thought Peter O'Mahony at 7 really reassured me, because Josh van der Vlier's performance in the England game was a point of real concern with obviously Dan Levy not being available.
Sean O'Brien passed it.
Sean O'Brien a bit past it, really. We needed a 7 option.
Jordy Murphy not looking good,
which is like,
why he's gone.
He's kind of rightly gone. He didn't look at the physical pace. Peter O'Mahony as an option at 7 I really do buy into. He plays very much like a 7. He's a forager, he's a disruptor.
Partnered with Tyke Byrne, it has a decent balance to it.
It does.
Similarly, if they put Stander at blindside and Conan at 8, that could work too.
True.
Although Conan had a quiet one.
He had a quiet one, but do you know what? One thing that impressed me, like obviously his ball control at the base of the scrum was great, apart from that one instance where he really should have left it in and we would have driven over. We did end up getting the try a few phases later.
No,
but
we did not. We threw it into touch. That cost us. Conan picked and went off the base of a scrum that was driving,
but Wales fail to exit though?
We ended up tossing it into touch. We may have had a penalty advantage from the same scrum, and eventually got a penalty try.
We did, yes. It was a very Irish, wasteful, non-clinical way. But one thing that he didn't do all game, like he did slot in at first receiver and then do the little tip-on pass, and so did Tyke Byrne. Both of them kind of failed to get their carrying game off, but neither of them died with the ball, crucially, which is a distinction with difference between him and CJ. And I do firmly believe that for this Ireland model to work, we need a bit more playmaking from number 8 in terms of just linking with the halfbacks. Making that link and transition between forward and back is important. And that was one positive that I took from that game. We were looking to do that a bit more. Caveat is that the defensive line speed in terms of their defence was nowhere near. Wales' defence was nowhere near the level that they would like to be at, because they just weren't rushing. They were granting us much more space, which in turn allowed us to get more offloads off. Like I think someone was bring the stat up, like Ireland threw as many offloads in that game as they did.
I don't think that's got everything to do with the Welsh defence.
That's
a mindset thing.
It does.
They're just looking for it more, which is great.
Definitely.
It is true that there'll be a truer test this week. I'm expecting Wales to try and rectify what they would have seen as a poor showing in those tight areas and the contact areas. It's something they pride themselves on.
Definitely.
Don't give an inch around the fringes. That's Wales.
Make the breakdown sloppy and slow.
Make the breakdown sloppy. Attack that Irish line out. They'll be looking to achieve that scrum parity. Obviously, without Evans and Samson Eid, expect Thomas Francis to come in with Nicky Smith, and they will be looking to lock down that scrum and then attack the Irish line out, which has been so dodgy that they're just going to have to go for that area and just make everything Ireland try to do scrappy. Then that's what Wales are great at.
Yes, indeed.
It feels like it would be like a fitting climax to this whole Ireland-Wales, Joe Schmidt v Gatland tit-for-tat battle of wars of words and rugby that have been going on over the last number of years. It just feels like it would be a fitting end if they both ruined each other's home send-off. It just somehow feels like that would be a good way to sign off for them.
Possibly true,
but obviously we don't want that as Irish fans.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, no, I hadn't even considered that, but you're probably right. They have really, it's been a ding-dong battle for years with the pair of them, and they're good value in press conferences as well, good little foils for one another. And tactically it's produced some interesting games. Like Ireland-Wales always takes a different shape, which is very interesting to me. Like when you think back to like Ireland getting the win, I think was it 2014 where we were Dublin kicked the leather off the ball as Gatland himself said, and we did really like kick all possession. We had a team full of fullbacks at the time, and we were either bombing it or going long and finding
a very sharp set piece and line out maul.
Which really just helped not allow Wales into
Paddy
the game
Jackson
at all.
was a 10 at that game, but it didn't matter because it was all forwards.
But then the picture of it, this like obviously we've rarely seen Ireland as inept as they were in this, and as flat as they were in this Six Nations, and dealing with a Welsh team on Grand Slam rollover momentum. They got absolutely swatted aside, and we obviously one positive I'll take from that game was the lessons learned by James Ryan by getting completely outsmarted by Alan Wynne-Jones at line-out time. I actually think that's great value for that young man going into this World Cup, especially if he's now probably going to be calling the line-outs, either himself or Henderson. But it's definitely good learnings to have a wily guy like Alan Wynne kind of school him a little bit, which definitely did happen. But then when you think back to last year as well, when Wales were a bit more scarlets in feel, and Ireland really did dominate that game and dominated possession, but just took so long about scoring tries, and Wales, being the clinical side that they were, just managed to keep scoring tries and staying in it for the whole game, including the last phase. It's always a good test.
Until Stockdale gobbled up a loose ball.
It was a loose ball, but
it was a great game, you're right, and it has been truly a ding-dong battle. Wales will be looking to keep it tight, will be looking to exert that physical dominance, and Ireland will be hoping to achieve that, to achieve an edge in that physical battle, but they must understand by now that you don't beat Wales by smashing through them in those tight areas. Well, you can keep doing it for days and years, but it's never going to quite do. You got to have a bit more to your offense. You got to move the ball about the place. I don't know if we'll see Sexton or not, but either way, it's got to be.
I would like to. I think Joe Schmidt would like to too. It's not advisable to be going into the Scotland game with no minutes. For your starting
0
10.
minutes.
Like
since the Champions Cup,
especially when you look at like Finn Russell last week was playing 70 minutes against the Georgians, like in Tbilisi. That's going to stand in a good stead.
Crack of it. Just because he loves playing rugby.
Indeed. Well, like Johnny Sexton is the same. He's bullish to get back, and I'm sure if he's not named, it is a sign that he's actually not fully fit, which is a concern. But all things being equal, I think he will be out there. I suspect we'll see Conor Murray as well. It's really a chance for the first string team to get themselves in order and primed, and get those minutes under their belt, as well as get their home send-off. Ideally, they'll be winning the game and getting a home send-off at 2. But for more important, it is still performance-oriented, and they'll obviously want to escape with no injuries, although 1 or 2 may occur. Because
of all of these games that we've previewed, and they're the last send-off, we will probably, statistically speaking, see at least one
injury and people out.
Cup-ending injury.
I'd imagine so. I'm hopeful that it's not on our side, but I'm not all that confident to say that it won't be, because we do play an attritional game, we do play a physical tight game, and these games against Wales, especially now that we like the fact that we went over to Cardiff and won, will sting and hurt, and there's not really any chance in my mind that you'll see a Wales side start as sluggishly as they did last week, as loosely around the contact.
They'll be gunning for it. They'll be looking to do exactly what they did last time, which is just deal with everything Ireland bring physically, disrupt everything Ireland do, and pick off the scores when they come, which they're just excellent at doing. From Ireland's perspective, I think the one thing that they need to adjust in terms of how to beat Wales, I think set piece security is huge. If they can secure the line out ball and get a good maul going, that's obviously massive. Their scrum, I think, is stronger than Wales. If they can maintain that strength, that'll be huge for them. And then it's just obviously keep building on that offense, have a couple of plays in you, but varying the kicking game from the bomb, which Liam Williams is, as he puts it, a bomb diffuser.
He is up there with the best in the world at that particular skill.
Doesn't he work on Liam Williams?
No, it doesn't. And the difference is, in that game that I was citing from 2014, it was Halfpenny at fullback, who was vertically challenged in that area, not the strongest in that area.
One of the things that the Welsh do, especially if you move the ball across the pitch, is their wingers will shoot up. They'll come up in the line, especially if you get like one or two passes from the breakdown. They'll come up, and that's when the opportunity is there to put the ball in behind them. And territory into that corner, low kicks, spirals, as you say, deep into the opposition corner. Get a bit of that, in advance of the 50-22 kick rule. Get a bit of those 50-22 style kicks into the corner.
Absolutely,
that's a way to play them.
It is a way to play them. It's something. You can't even cite individuals at winger. It seems to be just a trend with this Wales team that we've definitely noticed, is that no matter who the guy in the winger jersey is, their instinct is to push a little bit up, get a little bit flat, especially as the other team's going through the multi-phase, and there is space behind for probing kicks. Not so much for bombs.
No.
Bombs just really do not pay dividends.
The more air on the ball, the worse.
They want to be low and fast, and finding the space, finding grass, and then finding touch. So that is something I would like to see in an area of improvement in the box kick as well. Even like, I know the bomb is don't
love the box kick.
I don't love the box kick in this matchup, but I
with their wingers.
No, not with their wingers, but I'm just looking at Conor Murray's form, and I would like to see him get that part of his game up to speed for the sake of our exit and our just our playing our way.
I think his passing game is more important.
It is.
Speed off the base is more important.
No, I agree with that. Especially now that Marmion is not going, and he was probably our quickest scrum half option. Murray definitely needs to find some form fast, because he has not impressed me this year, to be honest. In a green jersey, or really in a red one, he's not looked himself. He's definitely it's a far cry from the year prior, where he was getting billed as the best halfback in the world and all this. This year, you really haven't seen that, and I'd have all kinds of halfbacks ahead of him based on this year's showing.
Truly, I'm inclined to agree. In terms of predictions, do you have any?
I'm gonna be optimistic and say that we're gonna snake the win. It'll be a one-score game, I think.
I pure and simple. I don't know. I would be guessing with a prediction. I think both sides are just going to want that improvement. I think it'll be curious. It'll be informed by what happens at the scrum and the line out. It'll be informed by what happens at the breakdown.
The first 20 minutes will be crucial.
It'll be informed by how teams are approaching it tactically. I don't know. I feel maybe it's just blind patriotism, but I feel like Ireland might get the edge over it. I think if our pack can be hungry enough and strong enough, then maybe they could get on top of Wales. But we haven't seen it so far, and if we do see a hungry Alan Wynne-Jones or Tipperick, and that changes things.
Definitely changes things. Tipperick's one I'm fearful of. His spoiling game. Well, obviously Alan Wynne as well, but Tipperick's very fast as well. He can shut. If we're a little bit laborious in our ball in the hand and just a bit slow and plodding in terms of our multi-phase, he's a guy who will punish us for it, definitely. And rightly, because we deserve to be punished for it. I don't want to see us be sluggish and slow.
But that's just a killer. Like, if you do see typical slow, round the corner Ireland doing their best Georgian impression, Wales will destroy them. So that is definitely a factor. But I'm going to say, in blind patriotism, as you often do,
Ireland by 40 points.
I'm just going to say that we're not going to see that, and Ireland are going to edge the game and go into the World Cup with a bit of confidence.
There's precedent for that, like with the exception of the Wales game last week, but that was exceptional as well because of the nature of when the squads are named. That was the only instance that we saw a tier 1 team pick a hodgepodge 15 for their home fixture, and that was the reason why. This time I think it'll be a hit out for both close to their strongest team, and with these warm-up games what we've tended to see is that the home team edges it just in those fixtures. So I'm gonna stick with that as a rationale and say Ireland by 4.
Fair enough. We're going to move on. Just before we talk about the other news, we have the other games. There are so many games going on this weekend. Namibia are going to get their first run out. I don't know where or how I'm going to get to see this, but I would like to, because they haven't we haven't seen them yet this cycle.
Indeed, yeah.
But they're going to be up against the long-suffering Southern Kings, who are going out to play them. It's going to be Saturday, 2 p.m. Irish time, 3 p.m. Namibian time, I want to say. Maybe it's 2 p.m. there as well. In Walvis Bay High School, on the Atlantic coast of Namibia, Windhoek being inland. I was taking a look at it the other day out of curiosity.
Yeah.
So it's actually in this nice little coastal town, Walvis Bay.
Very nice. Yeah.
Hopefully they'll get a decent crowd to that, although I suspect it being in a high school, it may just be one of those casual walk-ins, see the boys off, but they're going to be playing the Southern Kings.
Yeah.
Russia, coming off a stellar performance, managing to rack up some points against the Jersey Reds, and who did manage to rack up more than some points themselves.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing Connacht in their send-off in Moscow.
Yeah.
Same day, Saturday at 5 p.m, in fact.
Yeah, in the VTB Arena in Moscow. And obviously for Russia it would be nice to get something off in advance of the World Cup. They're really going in.
A chance, man. A chance of doing that.
I don't. It's like if you're losing to the Jersey Reds, Connacht are pretty good,
85-15 against Italy as well.
Yeah,
that's lots of points to not many.
Indeed.
Maybe they'll beat Connacht. It's conceivable they'll beat Connacht. Connacht being in pre-season mode, minus other internationals.
Minus their internationals, Connacht tend to be quite a different and somewhat toothless entity.
It's entirely possible that they beat Connacht. I was just imagining, is Marmion going to play? Surely not.
He might.
Surely not. Fly off with Connacht to Moscow, straight off the Ireland squad. Just take a break. Maybe he will. But
it would be a good little chance for him to be a bit of a defiant, make a defiant statement. It would help Connacht for sure, yes. and hurt Russia. But yeah, that's a game obviously going on. And fair play, it was only confirmed recently enough. Fair play to Connacht. Always need to give the due to the club sides who make the effort and travel out and bailouts and tier 2 sides by giving them some games. Really does have to be done.
Bizarrely, Argentina are playing old school Aussie club Randwick, who are a famous local Sydney club who I don't know too much about, but I suspect are sort of a fair few rungs below Argentina anyway.
Should be, yeah.
That's going to be actually a curtain raiser. It's going to be at 6 a.m. Irish time. It's going to be a curtain raiser for the Australia-Samoa game in Western Sydney.
In Sydney Stadium as well, yeah.
Yes, that has also a game going on. I don't even know where to start on that one. Argentina by lots, I suspect.
You would think so,
those are all of the games.
That is all of the games for the weekend. And a fair few goodies in there. Definitely, I think the picks of the bunch in terms of ones to watch are Japan, South Africa, Scotland, Georgia, and Ireland, Wales.
Agreed.
They'd be my 3 go-tos anyway.
I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely interesting, and it's a good dynamic to have all the send-offs happening, and it really is. It's the final, the curtain coming down on the World Cup cycle, and it's time for the World Cup.
Yeah.
So
another quick reminder: we will be previewing the whole World Cup next week on our show.
Yeah.
It's going to be our big World Cup extravaganza.
Yeah, sure. Because the week after, sure, we'll be previewing games. So
we'll be previewing games. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So it's really getting close now. We're definitely buzzing for
scary
close. I know, and it's sure with teams being finalised and all kinds of spin and all the journal. Yeah. Oh, it was a funny old day and a half in terms of Irish media and reaction.
Yesterday was crazy. The media of all the squads being announced. It was just news. It was a crazy day.
Yeah.
to be
just having an ear to the ground on that one. It was a bit of a mental one, obviously, and there was so many stories come from it. But with that, I suppose we'll move on to our news of the week. And there was a few other bits of news outside of even the World Cup window in the game. And I suppose we'll have to take lead with rather a bad and disappointing story, which you may have heard yourselves. But Afiwi Dyantyi obviously tested positive.
His B
sample this time, which he demanded to get tested. He was very much denying any wrongdoing or knowledge of how he failed the initial test. But now it turns out, yes, his B sample has been tested positive for steroids.
Yes,
which leaves him facing a 4-year ban from the sport.
Jesus, it's such a killer. It's such this is a guy. Last time we saw him play, he was Breakthrough Player of the Year for the Springboks. He is, as they say, it was a South African governing body that caught him. Mm-hmm. That he had been tested 2 weeks prior and 2 weeks post, and it didn't come up in it.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different things that you can extrapolate from that information. Like, is it true that it's generally doable to hide, steroid use from these places, or is it true that he just maybe just took some stupid supplements or took some supplements that were laced with something.
Possible.
All possible.
If
maybe he was, bulling to get back fit and doing something
that's
ridiculous
a point too. Especially with the World Cup year, it can make you a bit reckless, I suppose. And if you're feeling like you're pushing it back from injury as he was, maybe you want the extra help. I don't know. All of this is conjecture on our part. We definitely don't know.
It's hard to say. His statements seem genuine.
They did.
So did Michelle Smith and Lance Armstrong, as you've said in the past. But it sucks. It sucks that this guy is one of the most entertaining guys, and he's could be gone for 4 years. I'm sure there'll be a greater investigation into it and what the standard practices are. First of all, the professional enterprise around him, the Lions Rugby and South African Rugby. It is a South African watchdog that got him. It's not like a World Rugby intervention. I don't suspect that this is sort of... Although you don't know, we've had schoolboy scandals in South Africa. You don't know how common a practice it is, or even culturally how accepted it might be over there. But that's what got him. So it's. I feel like I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I like him. I like him as a player. I like him as a guy. It's entirely possible that he just took some dodgy supplement that was laced with it and didn't even know. It's true that could be in it.
You've heard all kinds of stories of that kind of stuff happening. People applying cream and stuff to their if they get allergic reactions, applying cream that actually does have steroids in it, and stupidly were in that instance failing tests as well. It could be something like that. Also, it could just be more sinister than that, which is why proper investigation has to happen. And should the ruling be found against him, even though he's a stellar world-class player, he deserves to be banned for 4 years.
Ultimately, he's going to bear the responsibility for what was in his body. So I don't even know if intent is going to come into it, but I suspect that he didn't intend to. Just by suspect, it is conjecture, but I just suspect. And I feel bad for him, and I feel bad for rugby, because he was breakthrough player of the year. He's one of the most exciting players in the sport.
We were still hoping against hope that he'd make the plane, and so that's definitely not happening now, and it's rather a black cloud over what has been a glittering career for him so far. But this is definitely
what do you do for 4 years? You're invested in the game of rugby union, you're out of it for 4 years.
Try your hand at NFL. I don't know. It's not good news, but it's so we I suppose there's nothing more to say about it, because I don't want to talk in terms of spin about it. I don't want to just kind of spitball as to what may have happened or cast aspersions on him, because nothing that we know. We've just been following the story as it's been breaking. We don't know what intent was there. But it's definitely, all I do know is that it's a bummer, and it's bad news, and it's just unfortunate. But in slightly better news, Aaron Cruden set to return to the Chiefs.
Good. Failed. I mean, take the money and run from Montpellier. They didn't do anything for you except pay you a good bit of money, so that's
worthwhile enough. He'll be grateful for it. But he'll be working with Warren Gatland. That's interesting too.
Go back to them Chiefs and give them a 10.
Pretty much.
Listen, I'm excited to see it.
Hopefully that Montpellier juice hasn't got into his bloodstream.
He's certainly not playing to All Black level at the moment.
No, he's not.
But he could come into that Chiefs team and add value. Definitely. And we know he has it in him to play to All Black level. So
it would be nice to see him get a return to form and just to return to a proper pace of playing, because that Montpellier team were very slow. He's
going to stay on with Montpellier as a medical joker for the end of the World Cup. We had heard that news already, but he's going back to Super Rugby in the new year, and that's confirmed, going to the Chiefs. Awesome, his old school team, the team that I like most of the Kiwi teams. Looking forward to seeing that. That is a good news story. Good to see some Kiwi talent returning home.
Absolutely, it's because it's more often than it's the other way around, and it's more of a negative spin to be putting on it. But this is good. And then in other disappointing news, just from where we're coming from, it is just a bummer. Christian Wade, despite all his promise, has been cut from the Buffalo Bills in the NFL. And
it's a ruthless game. I mean, they cut like 30 players from their outward squad. These teams tend to stick with the guys they know and trust. He is actually staying on, I think, in a training squad capacity, but I don't even know how relevant the trailing squad is to their NFL season. But he could be picked up in the next couple of weeks, I think, by another team if they need someone. I hope he is. I just feel I feel gutted for him, because it's the same story as his club form, in the sense that he's playing at a lower level and he's class. Every opportunity he gets, he's class. Every play that he gets to play in front of the crowd at the big stage, he's unreal. and then for sort of statistical reasons say, and you're actually quite small, and your 0 to 60 or whatever, that's car speed, but whatever, your 10-second sprint is not quite at the level, and all these stats things and training things, we just write you off without giving you a go, and every go he gets is class in both sports, in both rugby and NFL. So I wish that they'd given him a go in the big time, and I'm sure that if they had, he would have got some plays off. He's a slippery mofo. Like, he's tough.
Yeah, no, it is disappointing. Obviously, we've had that before with rugby. Well, I can't remember your man's name. The rugby league guy who's from Australia, I believe. He kind
of screwed up though.
He did.
He had a couple of bad plays.
Yeah, for sure.
Christian Wade just getting written off for being small again.
Yeah, I know. It's been a career of that. It's been fair play to him for making the switch, going through the combine process, getting him as far as he did, looking good all the way. And it's just a bummer for him that he's cut now. Obviously, it's the deviation from rugby, but like Christian Wade is still a rugby story in this context. And whenever a rugby player makes the switch to NFL, to American football, I really wanted to see them go well. I in fact want to see them light it up, and part of me really wants to see them make an absolute mug of everyone else in that league, because I really, really want to see that happen at some point. Like I'm waiting for the day that like a load of South African kickers are brought in to be kickers as well.
Way better kickers than all of those.
All of that stuff. I want to see the rugby skills pay dividends on the football field. And
you never know.
He was potential for that.
But I was planning on having the Bills as my second team, and I now wish them nothing but misfortune.
Yes, indeed. Especially, I hope their running backs get nothing off all season.
Yeah, exactly.
And poor Christian Wade.
Poor Christian,
to be honest. We're fans on the podcast. We're definitely big fans of him. We've seen him play a few times. Like we had Leinster and Wasps was a matchup that happened a few years in a row while he was there, and he always scored tries against us. Like even in losing efforts from them, he was always getting plays off. He's a danger man.
Quality player.
Yeah, so I can't but respect him, and it's a tough old game over there. It's pretty ruthless.
Yeah.
And then in just the final little bit of news, we have a couple of players, Sekope Kepu and Louis Picamole, are set to retire from the international game post World Cup.
Yeah, very familiar faces over the last decade or so in terms of their perennial
to the
stalwarts
game.
For their nations.
Yeah, absolutely. Two absolute talisman for them as well, and certainly in the case of Kepu, he's pretty vital to their chances as far as keeping that scrum going.
Not to mention he's Taniela Tupou has come into the fray these days as well, but Kepu has a underrated open field game.
He does, he gets around.
He does.
He's very useful in the loose. In fact, as a prop, as one of the fatties, he's one of those modern fatties who can really shift
like a horse. And he can move. Yeah, for sure.
And then Louis Picamole as well is just a destructive element. Like when he's on form, he has a touch of like what annoys me. He's very French. Is like sometimes he'll put on his invisibility cloak in
which Louis Picamole shows up is as relevant a question as which France shows up.
It's true.
Sometimes he just doesn't, but when he does, he's
in that essence he is a talisman, and like pretty much like in that mold. Like if he turns up to play on the big day, that whole French team can get going based off a few big plays that he can make, and he's very, very physical in massive matchups. He's still a massive man. So it'll be a last hurrah for him at the World Cup in terms of his international career, and it's been a glittering one for him, to be fair.
Hopefully they both get to send off in some style,
for sure. But I suppose that's it now. That's all the news we got.
As we approach and arrive at the 2 hour mark, I think time to wrap up the show. World Cup is getting closer and closer. These are the last games. We are into World Cup month. September 3rd as we shoot this, September 4th I suspect as we upload it.
Yes, that's right.
All of these games upcoming on the Friday Saturday I should say. And just a quick reminder, obviously always to like and comment in particular, sharing, belling, all of that stuff, subscribing, doing all of that, and then be sure to stay to tune in next week when we'll be doing our full
preview
World
show,
Cup
which will be a nice long form one. We'll get into all the groups, break down all of them individually, get a few predictions going. Who's gonna light it up? Maybe get a few bolter conversations as well. There's a lot to talk about, obviously. And this is the last hit out before the World Cup actually happens. So it's exciting times for any rugby fan.
Totally.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I suppose we'll leave it there. See you later, guys.
See you, guys. Bye.
All You're up. Yeah,
That was good.
That
That
was
was
good.
in.
That was good.
Yeah.
Just hit the light. Oh,
Oh,
the
yeah.
light again.
But they were both.
They were both. I know. Yeah,
That was good.
Yeah, I'll take that.